chairperson has not yet arrived, please try your call again later. Welcome to the GCI Conference Center. That entry is not valid. Please enter your access code, followed by the pound sign. Thank you. Please stand by. If you are the chairperson, press the star key now. You are being placed into conference in listen-only mode. There are 8 participants in the conference.
Are we online, on the air, on the record? Okay, good afternoon. We are back on the record of the Marijuana Control Board. Trying to get my computer to wake up, pardon me. Okay, it's about 20 past 1. Mr. Schulte, go ahead. You got something to bring up.
Okay, so but before lunch we were talking with Denali Fire about a bunch of their products, and I think in the course of that I may have actually confused some of the expectations myself, just based on my own lack of understanding on what staff typically does with some of these delegations. So I just wanted to maybe circle back real quick and just clarify for the licensee and for staff what is expected to happen with regard to labeling and packaging. So
go right ahead. Go ahead. I'll trust you, Jeff.
Well, okay. So my understanding was that the packaging is the physical container and that the label was the front and back label. But I'm not sure if that is correct. Perhaps Michael could expand. I mean, am I right that far?
So the intent, I believe, of the form is that the packaging relate to, again, like we've referenced, the physical container that the marijuana or product is packaged in. And then generally in the forms, the labeling refers to the labels that the labels or branding that will be affixed to the front, generally front and back of the product. So from what I understood that you guys were speaking earlier is that we're looking for, before it be in production and have pictures sent to enforcement, it seems that he has left off the front label in his labeling of all his products. And so you would like to see a mock-up of the front label for each product, but that he won't have to go back and get packaging examples that have his front label, just front labels for each product.
Okay, that I think was my understanding. Is the rest of the board on the same page with that? Is the licensee on? Does that make sense to you? Okay. All right, thanks. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Schulte. All right, which brings us to license renewals. Talkeetna Herb, numero uno. Yes,
We
go
had
ahead.
a time certain
Oh.
matter to discuss.
I'm sorry? Okay, go ahead. Oh, that was the lease?
Yeah, the
Okay.
property.
Yeah, that's was that tab 20?
30.
Tab 30. I was only off by 10. Okay, we got some on the phone also. Okay, so this is in Light and Alaska Greenery license 21551. Yesterday approved the license.
The conference is no longer in listen-only mode.
And there are dueling property claims.
Chairman Springer, I do apologize. I was gone yesterday. Is there any way I can get just a summary of?
Yes.
The one issue that the board made a decision on, in part because of my advice, was an assertion that the applicant's interest in the property, a lease, couldn't be challenged because the remedy sought by a prior leaseholder was money damages and not return of the property. So I think the board went forward, based on my advice, but it's very rare that you're going to get back in the property. Since then, we've received a communication from another licensee who is the prior tenant saying, oh, by the way, I sued for specific performance. I sued for an injunction to be returned to the property. To add to that, we've now received yet another stipulation saying, and I'm certain Jenna will talk about it, that we probably realize we're not going to be getting back in that space. But I'm going to leave it to the parties, and then you can determine whether the interest is secure. And the problem is you have two licensees claiming title to the same space. One hasn't gotten an inspection. Is that correct? And it'd be hard to inspect a place that they're not in. But a property right is a thing, so you just have to figure how much of this thing they have.
And Enlighten Alaska has not received inspection?
Well, Enlighten Alaska hasn't been approved yet.
Okay.
I mean, actually, yesterday you approved it, but...
So there's an existing license that was previously approved with delegation and then moved to active pending inspection for Turnagain. That license is in the location that they have now submitted an application for. You guys determined yesterday that despite there already being a license in active pending inspection status in that location, it was appropriate to allow this license to be approved with delegation in the same location without taking action on the license that is already active pending in that location.
And so the reason why that license is active pending inspection in that location, but they don't actually have possession of the premises, is because they've been evicted by the landlord, the same landlord for Enlightened. So I have David Shroop. He's the attorney for the landlord, and so he's more appropriate to speak to the position of the litigation. His office also provided me with that stipulated order that Ms. Wilson referred to that basically said, and I'll let David speak to it more, that, hey, we know that we're not getting in this property anytime soon, and that it's been leased to somebody else, and they stipulated to that fact. So, David, with that introduction, could you maybe correct any errors that I presented, if I did, and also to speak to the status of the litigation and whether or not it's at all likely that that there's going to be granted access, but from the past tenant?
Hello, this is John Farr. I represent Turnagain. I just wanted to make it known that I'm on the phone here.
Okay, and David, can you introduce yourself to the board?
Yeah, it's a little hard to make out what you guys are saying, but yes, I guess I'm kind of basically following it.
Okay, and can you give the board a summary of the litigation and what's being requested and whether or not it's on the table for the previous tenants to gain access to the property?
Sure. So I represent Egamo Properties, Inc., in the litigation filed by Turnagain Corporation and Turnagain Manufacturing Company. The property is wholly owned. It's owned outright by Egamo Properties, Inc. Egamo Properties, Inc. opposes Turnagain or Turnagain or anything to do with any of them from ever going back into that property. At the outset of the litigation, the plaintiffs, Turnian and Turnigan Manufacturing, asked the court for a very quick trial date, and that date was scheduled for December 2nd of this year. And the lawsuit was filed months ago. Normally it takes a year or a little more to get a case to trial once it's filed. In this case, the judge agreed to set it on for about 6 months out or 5 months out. It was something in that range. And that was a request by Turnian Corporation and Turnigan Manufacturing. Since then, the property has been released to a company called Enlighten, and there's a stipulation that was entered into between the parties, signed by Mr. Farr on behalf of Turnian and Turnigan, and by me on behalf of Egamo Properties, that says that the parties acknowledge the building at issue in this case has now been released to a new tenant, and that the plaintiffs thus are unlikely to be able to reoccupy the building. Therefore, the perceived urgency in getting the case to trial no longer applies. The judge in the case, Judge Matthews, then signed off on vacating the December 2nd trial date because there's now there's not really a claim now. I mean, my understanding is Turnian and Turnigan have essentially dropped their claim that they're going to get back in there. And in addition to that, my client, Egamo Properties, is really insistent that under no circumstances will they go back in there. He will simply not release to them. And they don't have a claim to be able to go back in. They have a claim that says, you should have given us notice before you locked us out, and so we want money for that. So at this point, I don't see any possibility that Turnian or Turnigan will ever get into that building again.
May I respond to that? This is John Farr.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Barr. You are counsel for Turnian?
That's correct.
Okay, go ahead.
First of all, the stipulation, Mr. Shoup left out part of the stipulation. It says they're not likely to get back into the property anytime soon. I represent Turnigan Manufacturing Company, which was locked out of the premises on the night of April 2nd to April 3rd of this year with no notice. And we are suing to get back into the property. That's one of our claims. It's an injunction. The court, we filed for a motion for a temporary restraining order. The court denied that on the basis that we had an adequate remedy at law. And we are still seeking an injunction. That's one of our counts. That's count 2. The point of the injunction is to get back into the property, that the landlord will be enjoined from releasing the property to anyone else and maintaining this lockout. So in the long term, we are seeking to get back in the property, and we will be asking the jury to make the appropriate findings that would support a preliminary injunction or an injunction, a permanent injunction. The preliminary and temporary restraining order go under a different legal standard, but we are seeking a permanent injunction in our lawsuit. And the stipulation that Mr. Shoup referred to was only concerning the trial date. And the judge, as I mentioned, he denied a temporary restraining order to get back in the property immediately, but did grant a motion for an expedited trial date. However, the way the trial date worked out, it was not expedited enough to do us any good, but it was too expedited to properly prepare for the trial. And that date that was originally set was December 4th. So that's been vacated. There will be a trial-setting conference on November 25th of this month to set a new trial date. However, in that trial date, we will be seeking an injunction, a permanent injunction concerning that property.
And if I may be allowed to respond to all that? Okay, so when I'm sorry?
No, go ahead.
Okay. When Mr. Farr says I left out part of the stipulation that says anytime soon, I'm going to read it word for word because it doesn't say that at all. The parties to this matter, the Turnian Corporation, Turnian Manufacturing Company, Egamo Properties, Inc., and Seth Mullen, by and through their respective counsel, acknowledge that the building at issue in this case has now been released to a new tenant and that the plaintiffs thus are unlikely to be able to reoccupy the building. Therefore, the perceived urgency in getting the case to trial no longer applies. Contrary to what Mr. Farr just told you, the words anytime soon do not appear anywhere in that stipulation. The second point is that Mr. Farr is correct that he filed for a preliminary injunction to try to get his clients back into the building. What he didn't tell you is the judge denied that motion, and the denial was based at least in part on the fact that at the time of the eviction, Turnian Corporation owed Egamo Properties $180,000 in unpaid rent. So at this point, I think the judge was very troubled by the fact that they were asking to go back into a building in which they hadn't paid rent for a year. And I think Mr. Farr's clients now agree, they don't dispute that they owe $195,000 in unpaid rent in total. So that's the first two things. And the third thing is just a technical matter. It wasn't a December 4th trial date. It was a December 2nd trial date, and that's in the order itself. So at this point, there is almost no chance that that company or any of Mr. Farr's clients are ever going to get back into that building.
If I may respond.
Thank you. Briefly, please, and then we'd like to have some discussion here.
Yeah, very briefly, my apologies. The intention was anytime soon, and if Mr. Shoup worded it in such a way and I didn't read it closely enough, then kudos to him. It was an act of professional courtesy on my part, in part which I shall not explain, but in a case that's been distinctly lacking in professional courtesy. But the bottom line is we will be seeking a permanent injunction. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I wonder if you might consider reconsidering the application and approving it contingent upon continued possession of the property. Should the other tenant get specific performance and get back into the space, you're in the situation where you have no place to operate, and then the other tenant has the ability to seek an inspection and everything further. Let the court... All right.
The conference is now in listen-only mode.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr.
Shulkin. This is for counsel. Yeah. So I understand what you're suggesting. Isn't that sort of implied, though, in our licensing process? I mean, at any point in time, if they lose possession of the property, their license is essentially invalidated anyway.
Well, they'll have due process rights
and
all
sure.
that. But yes, I mean, either one of these two entities will have a remedy, but you need the space to operate and you need control of that space. It sounds like at present the party with the control of the space is the party in front of you, not to disparage the other licensee's potential interest. Were the court to agree and order specific performance, which is a possible remedy, they would go back in, these guys would be out.
Is it your recommendation then that we revisit this and...
I would at least put a condition on it, or make sure it's very much understood and that you're both here and that you understand that as well. And obviously you're their counsel. Okay.
Mr. Chair?
I know it's unusual.
Yeah, Mr. Jones.
Miller, I guess, just a question. This is Anchorage, correct?
This is Anchorage.
The Anchorage process is pretty laborious, and I know that the applicants, when we asked yesterday if they could delay till January, were aghast that we would suggest that. But it's going to be months before they get through the Anchorage process. And the Anchorage process, most of their protests are, do you have a certificate of occupation? Can you actually occupy the space? And I think the municipality of Anchorage will question again who has control of this property. And so it may well be we don't have to do anything. One of these two is going to come back to us in 6 months and say, we lost our property. Or both of them will come back and say they lost the property. But I think, you know, we on advice of council approved it. And I think their next stumbling block outside of the court system ruling, whenever that might be, is the municipality of Anchorage process and whether or not they ever get a conditional use permit or certificate of occupancy from the municipality of Anchorage. And that'll determine whether or not they have to come back to us. So I'm not convinced we have to do anything.
Through the chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would agree. I don't think we have to do anything. You know, if they lose the premises, obviously the license is not going to be valid anymore. And I think they've met all the requirements of our licensing process, and we should stay within those lines. And unfortunately, someone will be back to see us shortly. Well, hopefully shortly. I don't know how long it'll take. But we let that process work its course, and, you know, I would hate to affect another business negatively where they might not be able to complete plans based on the unknowns at this point. If it's a risk they're willing to take and they're willing to affirm that they understand that risk and they could be back without a license, then I'm fine with the action we've already taken.
Okay, any other discussion? I concur with what, pardon me, sushi man. What Mr. Jones and Mr. Miller said. I don't think we need to do anything here. I mean, I didn't go to law school, but I think that possession is 9 tenths of the law.
Well, you've convinced me that the remedy is elsewhere. What I was concerned about is misinforming the board. If I told you specifically it's not a remedy,
Yep.
I didn't realize it was in this case.
Yeah,
so thank you.
I appreciate your diligence.
If you guys are accepting this as sufficient proof of possession for this application, does that mean you would like to be considering the sort of competing application, if you will, on the January agenda for action? They've lost the property?
No, I think that's up to them. They have to come to us because otherwise they will call for an inspection on a non-existing building and we'll turn them down. I mean, it's up to the applicant to do that, and it's not up to us. Otherwise, they should have been here months ago.
Is there an outstanding NOV that you're referring to?
No, we'll have a license sitting in that. It'll come to you guys again if it's an active pending inspection long enough. But I just didn't know.
It'll be on our roll call. Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
You bet. Okay, which brings us back to, we're going to try to power through some of these. We got to be at it. We got how many license renewals? We got 9 license renewals. We got some delinquent NOVs that actually we could probably deal with the same way we dealt with yesterday. We got a couple of new products, and we've got reg. Several of these all right. So let's get rolling. Talkeetna Herb Company.
And regarding this tab, I've received indication that we have received a list of protest.
Okay.
But the NOVs still stand for consideration.
All right. And we are in renewals. Is there a motion on license 10004, Talkeetna Herb Company for renewal?
Motion to renew license 10004, Talkeetna Herb Company.
It's a standard cultivate. So second.
Second.
Okay. Talkeetna Herb Company, you here? Are they on the line?
The conference is no longer in listen-only mode.
I'm here on the line.
Okay, that's great. I see one of these NOVs on delinquent taxes was from 2018. I see that you note in here that they were pretty small amounts, and are you squared away with revenue right now?
Yes, I'm squared away with revenue. Have one of them paid off, one of them on a payment plan.
Okay. All right. Any questions?
One, I just want to make sure I understood correctly that you said the borough had lifted their protest?
Yes.
Okay.
Don't want to plug it in there. Okay.
I'll plug it in.
All those in favor of renewal of license 10004 Talkeetna Herb Company, standard cultivate. saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, there you go, you're renewed.
Thank you.
So fucking many.
Canabasca, you turn the phone off.
The conference is now in listen-only mode.
Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Jan Dean, attorney for Canabasca.
Marty Ward,
Just trying to find it.
owner, Nebraska.
Oh, all right.
And so the payment of retail taxes, I believe this is referring to retail taxes? Yes, it is, because it's a retail, is paid, and I have the receipt for that in my phone, and I can forward it to Ms. Wilson, if the board would desire. And, the certificate of occupancy, there's just one thing left to do, and that's do the pavement striping, for pavement, things on the site plan, and that's happening this weekend. Or what is the striping?
That's striping.
Yeah,
And it's
striping.
done right now.
Striping on the pavement.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, is there a motion on, license, 10236? Go ahead, Mr. Jones. Okay. It's 10236. This is 236.
Okay. So, move to approve, Canabasca license number 10236.
Okay, there's a second.
I'll second for
Okay,
discussion.
and, Mr. Jones?
Thank you. In the, letter that was in our packet from the municipality of Anchorage, it talked about pending payment of taxes, which you addressed. And then you addressed something that's not in here, and that's striping the parking lot. In here, it's called the certification and use enforcement of a valid certificate of occupancy.
That's
Do they have the occupancy yet?
They have the CCO, so the conditional certificate of occupancy. What they need is the permanent CO, and that's gonna come when they get the final striping done, and then land use comes and inspects it.
Well, when you explain that, I mean, the letter said certificate of occupancy, and you were talking about parking.
Yeah,
So you did
sorry,
not address what was in the municipality of Anchorage's letter.
I skipped over that part. It's in my head, that's where that goes. That makes sense.
Well, it's gotta get in my head first.
You answered the question I had about a conditional certificate of occupancy. I would just point out for everybody else listening, it's really common for somebody to go into business with a conditional certificate of occupancy, and then they forget that there's stipulations. So just a heads up to everybody else, don't forget, you've got, a year, right?
Usually it's a
Typically,
year.
yeah.
I think this one expires December 31st, I wanna say. December 10th.
So just a cautionary note for everybody else, that's a real thing, in places like Anchorage.
Okay, any other questions? Then on renewal of license 10236 Canabasca, Alaska Sense Retail Store, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, 5-0 voice vote. Next is Alaska Sense.
Can we make sure we clarify that that's with delegation?
That's a delegation.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
they're all a delegation, yeah. Okay, next one is license 10237 Alaska Sense LLC Standard Cultivation Facility. So their motion on license 10237.
The same company.
Yep, same outfit. Letter. Actually.
Same issue, the striping, and it needs to be inspected. Also with the cultivation, Smiley just redid all of the filtration and the, odor control system. And that seems to be working, so
Good.
it's good.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Yeah, move to approve, renewal of Alaska Sense license number 102.
Moved by Mr. Schultz, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Miller. Discussion. All those in favor of approving the renewal of license 10237 Alaska Sense LLC Standard Cultivation signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not hearing any. 5-0 voice vote in favor. Okay.
Thank you.
And then one of my favorite business names, Prestige Worldwide Management. And I don't think they're here. Okay, this is,
The conference is no longer in listen-only mode.
So bad looking.
This is Philip Izon.
Dystopia.
Then he will put them on sale. That's what he'll do.
Dystopia.
Hello? Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Oh, no, I got lots more.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, not that one. I've got lots more.
Can you guys hear me?
Some of them are, yeah. Yeah, they are actually. This one's different. This one, maybe.
Okay.
Hello, this is Philip.
Okay, who are we talking to?
Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Getting there.
All right.
Just gotta sell more of our own shit.
Okay,
That's not me, this is Philip. There's someone else's phone not muted. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect.
This is Philip?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so you got an NOV from November on
Yes.
your taxes.
Yes.
Where are you at now on your state taxes?
My mother and I are working through a plan. We started with our grow operation back in 2017, kind of as like a preliminary concept project.
Somehow they were able, they would never get back in the building, so. But if
Okay, just a minute. All right, we can hear people talking about, there's lawyers talking out there. Put your phones on mute, please. All we want to hear from is Kushtopia. Okay, Phil, go ahead.
Okay, so the grow operation started in 2017 as kind of a concept. We were looking to do Connex grow operation, and we started with a very basic, used Connexes, very cheap, small piece of land we were renting. We've expanded. We've ended up purchasing the property. We've added like a $50,000 power upgrade. We went in front of you guys to add an additional 4,000 square feet. That project's still not completed. The power upgrade has been completed. We end up, having the property, but we've run into significant delays that we just, any other grow operation that that isn't trying to do something conceptually wouldn't run into. And so, mostly climate and just trying to get the insulation correctly. And we've had a lot of crop failures. We had to go back to the drawing board and kind of rehash the whole grow operation, unfortunately. And we've been going through our material that, some of the stuff that we've had that was seeded or didn't do well or whatever, things that we expected crops to do really well. We had a couple crops in particular, that were supposed to come down this year and last year that were supposed to be significantly more than they were. And unfortunately, we just didn't have, ended up spending more money than it, cost to make it, unfortunately.
Sure, okay,
so,
that's, okay,
yeah.
hold on a second, hold on. What is your current status with the Department of Revenue? Do you owe
we have a payment plan currently set up. We've paid a plan, we're paying, I'm dropping a payment off today to pay them as well, and we're working on getting through that process. To give you some positive, we do have the retail operation now, and that opened in April. I just want to confirm that the Matanuska protests are both relieved. We don't have those anymore.
They have been lifted.
Yes, and they're regarding a fence.
Violation.
Just so everyone knows. Everyone should, I want to make sure everyone is aware that this had to do with a fence, and the clarification was in front of the borough. When I sat in front of them, they were very clear with me regarding building this huge 2-acre fence, and I built it to their specs, but there was a section between my neighbor and myself that was left open to ambiguity. They said that I need to go communicate with my neighbor and come up with a plan. That was the direction. When I sat in front of the borough code compliance officer came out after I worked with my neighbor and built a small little section of fence. They were concerned about headlights, even though my neighbors never made any complaints at all on any of my licenses for any reason. And so I built this fence to the Matanuska's code specs so that way I could not have this protest. And now my neighbors...
No, the protest has been lifted. Okay,
I understand.
We're not
I
worried
just
about the
wanted
details of the protest.
I understand.
The Matanuska Assistant Borough protest on your renewal has been lifted. We're just wondering, you have 4 NOVs for non-payment of taxes. I understand that and I mean, if you're not producing and you're not harvesting, you're not selling, then you don't have a tax liability.
Oh, we are selling. It's just we're not producing as much as
sure. No, I got you. We are catching up. And with the retail operation, when it opened, we had a whole bunch of employees. Now we're down to just family running the operation. So we're trying to catch back up
We are catching up. We're back on a payment plan. Things are all positive now.
Well,
we just had to cut back
right on.
expenses.
We're just talking about your cultivate license.
I understand.
Right here. And so you have a payment plan. Have we got notice
Yes.
from Revenue that they're on a payment plan yet? Okay, do you have a letter from Revenue that says you're on a payment plan?
I have a payment schedule with them that, I make a payment every month on that. Like I said, my mother and I are working on a long-term plan for the rest of the money.
That's fine. Okay.
Through the chair,
Yes.
I'd like to ask a question, and
Go ahead.
licensee. On the tax delinquency tab, they're listed, so what does that mean?
That means that they're delinquent 3 months out of 6, I believe.
Well, no, it says...
It says more, maybe, but...
Yeah, but this letter is from October 21st, and they are delinquent, it says. So I just need some kind of clarification. Are they on a payment plan?
Well, I was gonna suggest that when we have a motion for renewal, that it be contingent upon their production of a payment plan covering all.
That's the number. They have one of those over.
Okay, so, okay, you hear that, Mr. Eisen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so is there a motion?
Okay, that's the number.
All right.
And I don't know what else.
Motion to approve Custopia license number.
Real quick.
All right.
You guys have a 1 second for me, please?
To ensure that the tax obligation is up to date.
Okay, Mr. Eisen, go ahead.
Okay, I just want to confirm that you guys received a letter I sent to you November last year. I believe Bruce Schulte may have received it when he worked at a different position. But I'm quite aware most of you gentlemen have received my letter. And I believe every representative in the entire state has received my letter, along with every legislator and every senator and the governor.
It's in our package here. Yes, we.
Okay, I just want to confirm that.
We've got a motion here. We have a motion to renew your license contingent on receipt of information either directly from Revenue or through you that you have the payment plans in place. So on the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay, Mr. Eisen, you're renewed. Get with the office. They'll tell you what you need to produce. Okay? So you're renewed.
Sir, I would really like the opportunity to read a little bit of this letter. I think it really.
Mr. Eisen, you know what? It's 2 o'clock. We got to be out of here by 5. We got planes to catch. We got a big agenda. We have your letter in front of us. It's in our packets. We are all in receipt of it. We're only talking about the renewal.
You guys, I get it, guys. I do. I'm not trying to, but I don't want to be rude like the other guy was. I want to be respectful. But I've lost everything. I don't have anything left, man. I've sold everything. I don't have any of my cars. My house is gone. My retirement. Everything is gone. I don't have anything anymore because of this. And it's just because, you guys don't want to read my letters. You don't want to acknowledge that there's an issue. It needs to be fixed. You can't saddle all the cultivators with the tax burden. It doesn't work. I acknowledge this. I've tried to point it out to you guys as many times as I can. I can't do this anymore. It's so exhausting. I can't, I reach out to every representative, every legislator, every board member, Erica McConnell, everybody. No one's doing anything. Please do something. Please.
Yeah, go ahead, Bruce.
Mr. Eisen, this is Bruce Schulte. We're not dismissing your concerns. The concerns about the taxes is one that I share, and I think almost everybody in the industry does. The board has put forth a request that the legislature take that up, hopefully at the next legislative session. That's as much as this body can do. But I can tell you that those of us who are following it are certainly going to follow it and see if we can't change it. I get you, man. I hear what you're saying. Everybody agrees with you because you're all in the same boat. So please don't feel like you're being kicked to the curb. You're not. All right?
Okay, thanks, Mr. Eisen. And like I said, you're renewed. Just get some information about your payment plan into the office. Okay, TLG Garden. You got somebody on the phone?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, all right.
Hey, Terry, it's Jana. I'm here, too.
Okay, just 1 minute, sir.
Yes.
All right. Matt Nuskus, Sioux City, Borough. We heard from them?
I have not seen a list come through my email that I have recorded. That doesn't mean we haven't received it, and if you guys do approve with either delegation or the abeyance, if we have received that list and I don't have a record of it, that'll get resolved as soon as staff gets to it, so it won't delay.
Okay, so it's our understanding that Terry has paid this, the delinquent property tax, but it doesn't look like the protest has been lifted, so I will make sure to follow up with Adam at the borough for that. And Terry, did you have anything else to add?
My taxes are paid. They were current. Last payment was approximately September 16th, and I owe the second half due by February, which I can go down and pay tomorrow if that's what I need to do. I just haven't got over there.
All we have here, the only protest is from the borough on your real property taxes. And,
they've been paid.
Okay, all right. We'll do this with delegation, and just get a copy of your receipt into the office. So is there a motion?
Motion to approve TLG Garden license number 13344 with delegation.
Is there a second? Second. All right. And the delegation is that your client come up with a receipt and get the letter in from the borough.
That was going to be my clarification, is that we get the notification for the borough.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion renew license 13344 TLG Garden LLC Limited Cultivation with delegation, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? 5-0 voice vote, it passes.
Thank you.
Vote aye.
Right here.
They were on the phone also, right? Or were they?
You know, I was supposed to text them. I don't know if Travis or Robert is on the phone. The only issue in front of you is the MJ20A, which we explained is because Travis left the state and needed to file that transfer. So he explained that in...
So this is for the father and son, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right, so we've already approved the transfer. So for renewal of... and the transfer paperwork had the residency on it.
Correct, and also in MJ28, Travis explains in the little paragraph here exactly what happened.
Right, because where it says licensee, it means the son. It means Travis.
Right, because I had to renew
Robert
it.
is now the licensee.
Robert is currently now the licensee with delegation.
Yep. So we're renewing. We're renewing for Robert. Okay. So is there a motion on license 144? Hold on a minute. Is there a license?
No.
Is there a motion?
The conference is now in listen-only mode.
Motion to renew license 14178 Bodie Tree Wellness, and I don't believe we need delegation.
I don't think so. Is there a second? Second. Okay. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approval of renewal of license 14178 Bodie Tree Wellness, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, voice vote of 5-0.
Thank you.
And it's approved. Thank you. Catalyst Cannabis. I am not going to try to say that 3 times fast. Yeah. Okay, you get your client on the phone, or?
Yeah, I think,
we need him?
I'm Jason Brandeis, the attorney for Catalyst Cannabis Company, and I think Will Schneider is on the phone.
Okay, go turn the phone on for a second.
The conference is no longer in listen-only mode.
Yeah. Okay. Well.
Big Will Schneider. I'm
I
on the
think
phone as well.
I think we let Mr.
Poke your nose in, and we'll haggle some more. I'll get off
The conference is now in listen-only mode.
Protest. This licensee's been operating for a while, and I'll try to make this real brief, but basically the facility is in a strip mall and has a parking lot. They need additional parking for when you look at all of the tenants in the strip mall, so there's an adjacent parcel that has a parking lot, and there's an agreement between the landlord for where Catalyst operates and the property owner for the adjacent parking lot. They've got an agreement in place. It's recorded with the municipality. The licensing process for Catalyst gave the municipality an opportunity to look back at that agreement, and they decided that that agreement, which is about 10 or 12 years old, which goes until 2020, still has another year on it. They felt that it needed to be updated to match current forms, and the parking lot physically looks a little bit different than it did 12 years ago, and they wanted it to be re-agreed to and to extend for another 10 years. So we've been trying to get the landlord and the owner of the actual parking lot to try to make those adjustments, but our ability to do that is somewhat limited since we're not a party to the agreement. So we've been trying to work with the municipality to get that arranged. And it's been a little bit of a difficult process.
Okay, so in 10 seconds, you don't anticipate any big problems with the borough lifting its municipality?
Well, we think eventually we will. We just don't have a timeline on when we're going to be able to get that resolved.
Okay, well, we'll just do this one on the delegation?
But currently you have a CCO.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so there's a motion on Catalyst Cannabis Company 11638 retail.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Maybe a question to the attorney
Go right
first. I believe that we are required by our regulations to uphold the protest from the municipality unless we find that protest to be arbitrary and capricious. And while I understand that this may be more between the landowner and the landlord and not involve this business, the way I read the municipality of Anchorage's letter, they are protesting the renewal of this license. So while I would greatly support renewal of this license, because I don't think the parking situation has any on this, the municipality has formed this as a protest.
Yeah.
And our rules say unless we determine it's arbitrary and capricious, we must uphold the protest. And so maybe our attorney can tell us if we have a way out of this or not. I don't want to put this business out of business. I don't want to cause any further pain and anguish, but the municipality of Anchorage has filed a formal protest.
If I may respond to that, it's a conditional protest. So
it says, well, it says here renewal of marijuana license retail Catalyst pending certification of a revised parking plan. Per 3AAC, a conditional protest was approved at the September Assembly meeting. That's still a protest.
Right, but there are two different so in the letter from the municipality, it specifies that this is a conditional protest, and 3AAC 306-060 specifies that if the protest is not a conditional protest, so if it's just a protest, you have to deny the application unless it's arbitrary, capricious, or unreasonable. But in the event of a conditional protest, such as not having satisfied a conditional use permit or a special land use permit yet, then the board does not, that has to be met before the license may actually be issued. So essentially we're in the situation now where the last year's license expired August 31st, so all of the licensees that you're hearing today are essentially operating under a temporary license. So in a situation like this, we would be looking to continue this status until we could satisfy this conditional requirement. So essentially, as part of the delegation, we'd continue to be in this status until we can satisfy that condition.
And that may be the change we made. I'm not as familiar, but so maybe our attorneys, if she agrees with that.
It's 060A.
If that's the explanation, I don't have any problem, but it's hard for me to see that in the letter from the municipality, so.
It does say conditional, which means that they have an expectation that the protest will probably be lifted. It's a protest, not an objection, so. Can you turn your microphone on? Thank you. No, that's okay.
So 306-060, if the protest is conditional, and that's what you're asserting this is at this point, the board will require the applicant to show to the board's satisfaction that the requirements of the local government have been met before the board may issue the license. If it's not, the board will deny the application unless the board finds that the protest is arbitrary and capricious. So yes, if it's a conditional protest, you don't have to meet that standard of arbitrary and capricious.
I think the only fear in this situation would be that it would keep going and going, and they'd essentially operate under a temporary for an undetermined amount of time.
Well, I think that's fine. I'm not worried about that. I just wanted to make sure that we were legally able to renewal.
Okay, so we have a motion for Catalyst Cannabis, 11638.
Motion to renew license for Catalyst Cannabis Company 11638 with delegation.
Yeah, delegation specifically on the conditional protest from the Planning Department of Anchorage.
Second.
All right. Any more discussion? All those in favor of approval of the renewal of license 11638 Catalyst Cannabis Company, retail in Anchorage with delegation over the conditional protest from the municipality of Anchorage, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, Mr. Jaime's opposed. Okay, so it's a 4-to-1 voice vote with Jaime in opposition for renewal.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay, Outpost.
Mr. Springer?
Yes.
Both Outpost license 17068 tab 53 and for 18493 tab 54, we've received notices of list of protest, and there are no other matters for these licenses to be considered by the board, so they should be able to be renewed by the office.
Okay. By the office? We got to vote to renew them, yeah. But
well, you guys normally don't consider applications that don't have issues with them.
Gotcha. What's the... Okay, sounds good to me. Yes, okay. Okay, we have NOVs here, and we don't have anybody here to talk about them. This would again be a notice to the board to issue. Chief Holscher's not with us. It'll be some light reading for the new director. There are a couple of multiple NOVs here that responses received. Don't see a response on one of them. Some video surveillance ones here, so folks, check your cameras. Then we got an advertising medical and health benefits, which you know how we feel about that. Taxes, odor, taxes, and that's it. Any out here anybody want to bring to anybody's attention? Okay, moving on.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Well, I appreciate your desire to move on quickly. I can't do that.
Go right ahead.
And I wasn't exactly sure when I read this section whether we were expected to do something about this. Are these licenses already renewed? And yet, Alaska Precision, we have $1,800 in delinquent taxes owed out in Matsu, and our review fee, and then we have notice of violations, and I realize nobody's here to talk about it. But I guess I would like, are these already still properly licensed? And so the only decision we would have is if we were going to act on that license or a fine, or...
So these are renewal applications that have received NOVs within the licensing period. So these are licenses that applied for renewal. There was an NOV for that license, and so the board has to determine whether or not the NOV or NOVs make it so that the license should or shouldn't be renewed. They all have temporary licenses, I believe, but you guys still need to act on the renewals.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
That was not clear, and the chairman was going to pull past this without us doing anything.
I was going to stop.
We can't do that.
Okay, I apologize. This is section B of license renewal applications. So, okay, Alaska Precision. I better turn the phone on.
The conference is no longer in listen-only mode.
Straub, are you with us? Dave Straub, Alaska Precision. Okay, we'll get back to him. Okay, Great Alaska Bud Company, are you on? Oh, he's here. Okay, come on up. Let me turn the phone off for a second.
The conference is now in listen-only mode.
Okay, good afternoon. Introduce yourself.
I'm Sean Quell, owner-operator of Great Alaska.
I'm
Sean Quell, owner-operator of Great Alaska Bud Company.
Okay.
Cultivation Retail.
Okay, so you're, yeah. All right, so you're up for renewal here. You've got a video surveillance NOV, health and safety center NOV, security alarm system NOV, and a DAX delinquency NOV.
And those were actually from over a year ago. I don't know why they didn't come up on my last one, but I didn't get them until probably January.
Well, I see one that's dated January 10th.
Yeah.
And
I responded to all of them.
Okay.
That was important to respond and take care of all the issues.
All right.
Right away, yes.
So you took care of this,
Yes. It was a great learning experience.
one-hit wonder. There's some mold and some...
And so we went back and
Apollo Haze.
remediated all of the...
Wait a minute, what? Where's...
So you're saying that all the NOVs regarding health and safety systems, I'm sorry. Are you're saying that all of the, these NOVs, video surveillance, health and safety, security alarm, you're saying that all of those have been...
Oh, yeah, and that was over a year ago. That was like last fall, September, it actually happened. But I didn't get the NOVs until January, which was odd.
How did you know that they were problematic?
Oh, I mean, I got the NOVs.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the inspector came in and addressed all the issues, so I addressed the issues and took care of it right away.
Oh, but you got the official notice of an NOV?
I didn't get the notices until way
after
down
that.
the road. Yeah, after we remediated everything.
Interesting, okay.
Yeah, it was, I'm sure they were busy. It was, you know, a busy year. And so we addressed everything. I made sure I made replies. I didn't, not reply to them. I replied to all the NOVs and remediated any situation, put in another video surveillance system, which happened due to maintenance because in the one case we were having to increase the number of cameras, which caused an issue with my video security provider, Vivint, which is in the notes on my response. But we took care of those well over a year ago.
Okay.
And haven't had any issues or violations.
Your taxes good?
Except for, and taxes.
Your taxes good?
Yeah.
Okay, and, okay. Any other questions? We got a motion on license 10112?
Motion to renew license number 10112, Great Alaska Bud Company. I don't believe there's any delegation.
So, I think generally with renewals, you still do it with delegation in case we're waiting on a response from an entity because we don't list, unless it's a protest.
I am good with that.
I didn't have any protests in the city or the borough or the state or anything.
So if that's the case, we'd be able to immediately issue the license because the delegation would be resolved. So it won't hurt anybody to include the delegation.
Okay, is there a second?
I seconded it.
Okay, all those in favor, any other discussion? All those in favor of renewing license 10112, Great Alaska Bud Company Cultivation, with delegation, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, 5-0 voice vote, so Cultivate license is renewed, which brings us to your store, right?
Motion to approve license number 10113, Great Alaska Bud Company with delegation.
Is there a second? Second. Okay. Pardon me. Okay, video surveillance, advertising, medical
It
health.
was the same situation. It was all this occurred at one time.
All right.
So I addressed those as well, and
Okay.
it was all the same incident.
How about the advertising health benefits? What was that about?
There was a card that was left by myself from after a vendor had passed through, and we immediately removed that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you have a poster hanging on the wall
No.
somebody had sent you? I mean, we had that happen too, so, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And we're really good about covering things, but it was really kind of confusing, gray area, but I pulled it absolutely right away.
Okay, all right.
Chairman?
Yes.
Doesn't pertain specifically to this licensee, but just kind of a question. Short of an NOV, is there something in protocol that would look like an advisory notice, for example? Something that, you know, short of an NOV, but just like, hey, by the way, you got a camera's not working, or
Right.
you got a poster that's not working. Because I think
Small
that was,
stuff.
yeah, the small
Yeah,
stuff.
no, I think we are going to talk about that. That came up on Wednesday,
Yeah.
and I think, you know, it's something that the
It's an
new
important discussion.
director can, you know,
It's like a
consider.
0 to 100 deal, you know?
Yeah.
Right. I'd like to have a 50.
Yeah, sure.
Mr.
Later
Chairman,
discussion.
Yes, Mr. Jones.
our regulations allow for an inspection report, an advisory notice, and an NOV already.
That's very true. Like this would, well, the inspection report's kind of cut and dry, but advisory, you know, is something less than an NOV. So yeah, we can continue to talk. I don't know if an NOV
I've never
over some
seen
weed
one.
map postcards is worth an
Yeah.
NOV. Yeah. All right. Any other discussion? Okay, then on license 10113, Great Alaska Bud Company Retail, for renewal, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, 5-0 voice vote, and you're renewed.
Thank you for your time.
You're very welcome. Okay, Farmer Jack LLC.
Motion to renew license 10142 Farmer Jack's LLC.
Okay,
Second, quick, before he gets up here.
yeah, really,
Hi, my name is Josh Tobin. I'm the, I don't know, president and CEO or something.
licensee?
Yeah. I'm also known as Jack. We're on a payment plan from the December, tax violation, and we paid all the taxes we owed back in August, and I'm probably gonna go pay our taxes from October Monday. That's
All
where
right.
we are with our tax issues.
Okay, let's get the two NOVs there. Okay, any questions? Any discussion? We've got a motion for license 10142 Farmer Jack.
There is a motion, and it is
There is a
seconded,
motion.
so we're ready to vote.
Who made the motion? Oh, I guess for Farmer Jack.
I second it. We're trying to get it done before he sat down.
I got you, okay. I'm about as good at multitasking as, James said he was. Okay, all those in favor of renewal of license 10142 Farmer Jack's LLC Standard Marijuana Cultivation Facility signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Voice vote of 5-0 in favor of renewal. There you go.
Thank you.
Okay, Herbal Instinct.
One more thing, I'll be quick about it.
Sure.
Some of the board members know about what's going on in Anchorage, but what I've witnessed the last 3 days, and clearly the greater board and code doesn't understand what's going on in Anchorage.
What's going on? With Anchorage or in Anchorage?
With the building department.
Oh, we've been hearing that since they...
Right, and maybe it's time for the state to do something about it. The other thing is, and I'll get out of your hair, there is an advisory, and they do use it. I got one for having not enough cameras in our second inspection. So it is a tool that is being used. Thank you.
Yeah, Jack, I practiced architecture here for 5 years, so I know exactly what you're talking
I
about.
know.
Unfortunately, this body has no control over it.
I know that, but we'll talk about it later.
Okay, Herbal Instinct. Okay, Herbal Instinct, so you're here. Here, okay, turn the phone.
The conference is no longer in listen-only mode.
Okay, Herbal Instincts, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good afternoon. You just,
Good afternoon.
find you here.
Motion to renew license 10156 Herbal Instincts.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All right, go ahead and introduce yourself to us real quick.
Okay, my name is Christopher Konopka. I am the owner and operator of Herbal Instincts. Essentially, we had a large-scale crop failure, not this past summer, but the season before last, and it just put us in a really tough time. So since then, we were put on a payment plan with the state. As soon as we got into the situation, which we will actually have paid in full next month, and besides that, we're completely caught up and all good to go on taxes outside of that.
Okay, And there's okay, wait a minute. You're also Timeless Adventures?
That's our LLC, the DBA.
Right, yeah, okay, there's the tax letter. You had another NOV in here that's not noted on the agenda.
Yes, sir.
That was a metric self-report.
Yeah, that was essentially, we got an NOV actually before we even did anything. So we were issued an NOV before a response was made, and then so we had Amanda Stonecipher, which was, the investigator at the time retracted that since we actually didn't make, we didn't have to go that way. So.
Okay.
And there's an email behind that confirming that that NOV was retracted.
Okay, very good. All right, any other questions? Comments, discussion? Okay, on the renewal of license 10156 Herbal Instincts, standard cultivation, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Voice vote of 5-0 for renewal. Okay, there you go. Danish Gardens.
Thank you.
Danish Gardens here. Danish Gardens on the phone. Danish Gardens. Okay, let's jump back. Alaska Precision, are you online? Dave Straub? Okay, no sign of him either, okay. Frisson Farms. Hope I said that right.
Frisian Farm, sir, and I...
Frisian. Okay.
Motion to renew license 12616, Prison Farms.
There's a second. Okay. All right, so you've got this is one NOV for taxes. Are you, where are you at on your taxes?
We're caught up.
You are caught up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We got confirmation?
I don't have a record of that right now. We don't have that information in front of us.
I would, go back to the delinquent tax
That's
form,
for the IRS.
and they're not listed. So.
Okay, all right. Okay, where are we? Okay, so, for license 12616, Prison Farm Standard Cultivation for renewal. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, 5-0 voice vote, and you're renewed.
Thank you, sir.
All right, we're gonna give one last chance. Danish Gardens, are you out there? No Danish Gardens. Dave Straub, Alaska Precision. Okay, we may have to have a special meeting for those two.
Through the chair, I'll just ask one question to staff and move on quickly. Are these temporary licenses, do they have a time life, or could they be temporary forever if someone chooses never to come?
I believe they're not limited time-wise.
All right, yeah, we'll let the new director get settled in. We'll have these two for sure in a special meeting, and within probably next 2 or 3 weeks. Okay, operating plan changes. We'll start with Fat Tops. We hear from Fat Tops. Okay, Fat Tops, you on the line? What we got here? It's got temporary approval for a operating plan change. This is adding nutrients. And using new growth medium. Not using carbon dioxide. I don't know if there's a change or not. Well water filtered by osmosis and waste drained into their septic system. Pardon me, okay, they got a big long list of nutrients. Current page is being changed. Okay, anybody got any questions about this operating plan change? Okay, is there a motion to approve?
You know, I actually do have a question.
Sure.
If we have a question, who are we supposed to ask?
Well,
He's not on the phone?
That's true. They got temporary approvals granted by the office.
And based on that, and I think our past actions, that we should table this until
Okay.
we can ask the questions.
All right.
I don't know why we would change that.
Okay.
And I agree with that. Is there any way, or I'm sure we have to get the director involved, of these temporary licenses? They could go on indefinitely, and I disagree with that. They need to, there has to be some kind of standard or time frame.
No. Hey, this is Dave.
Hi, this is David Parker from Fat Tots.
Oh, okay, very good, Mr. Parker.
You
Thank
guys
you.
hear me now? Okay, good.
Okay, so, you had a question, Mr. Jaime, about the...
No, I was just talking about the temporary license, so.
Oh, no,
That's if I had a
license.
question,
Oh,
who am I
yeah,
supposed to ask?
Well, now he's here. All right, so this is just nutrients and growth medium, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. So is there a motion for license 11138, Fat Tops?
Motion to approve operating plan changes for license 11138 Fat Tops LLC.
Second? Second. Second by Mr. Schulte. Any questions? Not hearing any. All those in favor of approval of the operating plan change for license 11138 Fat Tops LLC, standard cultivate, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? A 5-0 voice vote. Hey, your operating plan is approved. Operating
Thank
plan.
you.
You bet. Okay, snow-capped gardens. This is anybody here from Snow-Capped Gardens?
I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead and tell us who you are.
Martin Brown, owner of Snowcap Gardens, license number 11921.
Okay, so you're adding CO2?
That is correct.
Okay, let's see, you got another one on here too? Nothing else, right? No other change? Just CO2?
Yeah, I had added a room too, but they gave me approval for that.
Right. Okay. All right, is there a motion for license 11921 Snowcap Gardens?
I move to approve the operating plan change for...
Second?
Second.
Okay. All right, any questions?
One question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Typically when CO2 is involved, the fire marshal kind of interested. Did we see something from that?
What are you using for a generator for your CO2?
Well, we already have, what we're doing is we're adding a CO2 cylinder, and I did attach the fire marshal approval with this.
Yeah. We will continue using the CO2 generator and be adding an injection system. Okay. All right, all those in favor of approval of license 11921 Snowcap, or approval of operating plan change for license 11921 Snowcap Gardens LLC, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, 5-0 voice vote for approval. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Coastal Grow, license 12104.
The conference is now in listen-only mode.
Okay. Are you part of the Legacy Time family in Alaska?
No.
Okay.
Our plan's pretty simple, our change. We're presently using flood tables hydroponically with clay pellet, and we want to change to flooding individual pots. We've had some mold and other issues. We're trying to reduce the exposure to the air for our nutrient mix, and also to the light. You know, all our water will be not exposed to light and air with this different system. And to accommodate the pots, the individual pots, we'd like to move in some metal shelving to accommodate them and use our space a little more efficiently.
Okay, so it's just growth medium and your platforms.
Yeah, our growth medium's going to be the same.
Yeah. Well,
just the way that we deliver
irrigation
water.
System. Yeah. Okay.
And then our wastewater is going to be the same as it was. No change in that.
All right. Good. We got a motion for license 12104 Coastal Grow.
Motion to approve operating plan change for license 12104 Coastal Grow.
There a second? Second. Any questions, discussion? Yeah, all those in favor of approving operating plan change for license 12104 Coastal Grow signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0 voice vote. There you go.
Thank you.
You bet. Okay, East Rip. Sounded pretty ripped. Okay, nobody on the phone?
No.
Okay.
Ryan Tunsteth, East Rip.
Jane Levine, attorney for East Rip.
Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So this is a super small change. It's just, the original operating plan change said that we would have somebody right outside the front door. This is changing that, saying somebody's gonna check the IDs right inside the front door. So as people enter, it's a very small area, so there's probably, how many feet between the door and the counter?
12 feet,
12.
maybe 10 feet.
Yeah, so as people come in, they'll be ID'd, but no one's gonna be outside the front door.
All right.
Did I miss
You got
anything?
you got a TV camera outside the front door, you got a way so the guy behind the counter can see somebody's coming in?
We do. We have a monitor that actually displays 4 different cameras,
Oh, yeah.
that's right back at the,
Just in case the guy that's on door duty is taking a few steps away.
Right, so the counter faces the door.
Okay, yeah, no, that's good, okay.
exactly. And we also have an alarm on the door to when the door opens.
Oh,
it
there you
makes
go.
a
Those beep or
audible
something.
beep.
Okay, are there any questions?
Motion to approve operating plan change for license 13382 East Rip.
Second. Okay.
Nothing gets by you.
I tell ya. I thought she was gonna raise an objection. Okay, so any questions? Button. Yeah. Okay. All right, for license 13382 East Strip operating plan change, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, there you go. Voice vote of 5-0.
Thank you. And if I could, I would just like to say, thank you to the staff, newly appointed council and, board members. It's been, a long and very, and the new director, of course. It's been a very, long and emotionally investing, meeting. And so thank you for your service and what comes along with that. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for your kind words. Okay, Simple House. Okay, Simple House on the phone.
The conference is no longer in listen-only mode.
All right, Simple House. Are you with us? We were told you're on the phone.
They said they wanted to handle this. They said they weren't on the phone. I texted them. Mark or Dane, you out there?
This is just change to, this is just a structural change and then,
Yeah, it looks like it's changed to the layout, and it's a limited license, so they give you a calculation there.
yeah, $4.95, okay.
And it is my client. They just wanted to try to address the board.
Okay, Simple House, you there? I think it's gonna be a simple change. Okay, is there a motion? They are represented.
Motion to approve operating plan change for license 13864 Simple House LLC.
Is there a second? Okay, so yeah, this is just,
Thanks, Vince.
this is just, changing the number of tables and keeping it at 495 square feet.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any questions? Not hearing any, all those in favor of approving the operating plan change for license 13864 Simple House LLC, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? 5-0 voice vote, there you go.
Thank you.
Okay, creative connections.
The conference is now in listen-only mode.
Jenny Koenig, licensee, represent, and Matt Koenig, licensee.
All right. Oh, you can. This is, all right. You got products on here.
Yeah, we have 3 products.
3 products, okay.
Yeah.
Is it? All right. Out here.
The products are on tab 70, but I would not object to getting it all done at
Oh.
once.
You have 3 only?
3 new products is all we
3
have.
new products, you promise. there any objection to taking up tab 70? Since they're up here, save us 30 seconds at the end of the day. Okay, let's pop open tab 70 and see what we got. Okay, okay, they are, okay, they're all extracts, they're,
Yes,
okay,
very simple.
yeah, all right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
are we gonna deal with tab 67 first?
Yeah, we'll do tab 67 first, yeah. So can you please run us down what you're changing here?
Very slight changes. Just because of, differences between actually being in business and not, I just clarified a couple of words, on our cameras and video storage, all of which meet or exceed regulatory requirements. We changed our metal transport box to a plastic one because the metal one was far too heavy to deal with and wasn't practical. We, on our products for our concentrates, we added a color because it turns out you can't always get white, and sometimes all you can get is black bags. We didn't want to be nixed on that. And then larger package options because the retailers asked us for it. We added an option on our shatter to use parchment folds instead of glass jars. Again, a request from the retailers. Makes sense. We changed one of the names to be more descriptive in the lexicon. And then on our edibles, we added a couple alternative ingredients as we actually got into cooking them more. We both added and deleted a couple of flavor options. Our flavor options are per edible, so ones we would use for that specific edible on each list. We added the black in addition to the white Mylar bags, again, because of possible
Opaque.
Availability.
They're still opaque.
Actually, they're clear on the front and solid on the back. It's just sometimes the back is black and sometimes it's white.
Oh, I got you.
Right, and they don't always have the white bags in stock, and
Yep.
we didn't want to not be able to put stuff out just because of the color bag. And then we added a variety of package sizes. A variety of package sizes, again, because of retailer requests. And then after our first time through the lab, I figured out why people put 3 milligram and 4 milligram on there, even though you're aiming at 5, because sometimes the math and the chemistry don't cooperate. And I would hate to destroy a batch that came in at 4 milligrams, so we added those options so that if a test came back and it turned out, oh, this whole batch is 4 milligrams, not 5, all I have to do is relabel them and I can still sell them. So those are the entirety of our changes.
Well, you got a smart boss.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, your ingredient changes, those are just,
Things like I added, in addition to evaporated milk on the caramel, I did an option for heavy cream, because it turns out if I wanted to make it a flavor, it works better if I use heavy cream instead of that sort of thing.
right? Okay, very good. Okay, any questions on the operating plan change? You did a very good job. Thank you.
Motion to approve operating plan change for license 17389, Creative Confections LLC.
Is there a second? Second. Okay, any questions, discussion? Microphone's on, are you ready to vote there, Mr. Jones? Okay. All right, all those in favor of, the operating plan change under tab 67 for license number 17389 Creative Confections LLC, product manufacturer, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Don't hear any. It's a 5-0 voice vote. Okay, so that's approved, and we will jump over to number 70, which is some concentrate products, 3 of them, right? Fireweed extract, crystals of sauce, fireweed extract, THCA crystals, and fireweed extracts, HTE sauce. We have a motion on these products.
Motion to approve products, fireweed extracts, crystal and sauce, fireweed extracts, THCA crystals, fireweed extracts, HTE sauce.
Yeah, second?
With delegation.
Second. Okay, moved and seconded by Mr. Miller, and seconded by Mr. Holy cow, we're gonna get done.
So these would be a good example where they've provided both the front and the back.
Yeah, no, this is you know, I mean, folks that are putting together applications, whether they've done it before, you never have, applications are on the website, and, you know, look at how some of them are done. You know, don't cut and paste them, but there's some very, very good examples of what staff looks for and what we'd like to see, so. Okay, any questions about these three products? You're not hearing any. All those in favor of approval of Creative Confections License 17389, new products, fireweed extract crystals and sauce, fireweed extracts THCA crystals, fireweed extracts HTE sauce. All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Any opposed? Nothing heard, so it's a 5-0 vote in favor. There you go.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, Talkeetna Traditions.
The conference is no longer in listen-only mode.
Okay, Talkeetna Traditions, you on the line?
Yes, sir, we're here.
Okay, first rate. I'll get right there in just 1 second. All right, is there a motion on license 17816, Talkeetna Traditions?
Motion to approve operating plan changes for license number 17816, Talkeetna Traditions LLC.
There's a second. Second. And then Mr. Schulte. Okay, operating plan and premises diagrams. You're a limited cultivate. All right. So, your original operating plan had a outdoor cultivate, right?
Yes, we're in a high top now.
Okay, all right. And so you want to go just move it all inside.
Yeah, so we can go year round.
All right. These high tunnels. Okay. Is there any other component to your operating plan change besides moving it in?
No, sir.
No. Okay. Are there any questions for the applicant?
No.
Yeah. Oh, it's there. It's there. It's, yeah. Easy to speed by. It's the MJ14. MJ02. You gonna be able to stuff everything in there to your garage?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. How's business? How's things growing for you?
It's coming. Good. And then we're going to apply early spring for the high tunnel season.
Okay, you good on your taxes?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, good. That means you're being successful. Cool. All right.
I have
yes, go right ahead.
I have a question, so I better understand this. So, is the indoor location currently being used?
Not right now.
So we approve this change, they're going to have to call for an inspection.
Yes, sir.
To come out and make sure that the cameras and everything are up to speed. Yes. Just wanted to clarify that just because we're approving the change today, doesn't mean we can correct.
Yeah, and this is kind of a new one for us. Just so you know, I don't think we've done a straight outdoor to straight indoor. So, yeah, if we approve it, then get on the phone to enforcement, and when you're ready. So.
Exactly.
Okay, do you still have stuff growing in the high tunnel?
No, sir.
Okay, all right. Okay, very good. All right, so on Talkeetna Traditions, license 17816, operating plan change. No more questions? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Do we have a
motion? Yes.
I don't.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. Yep, Nick and Bruce.
With delegation.
With delegation.
Too many mics on. It is with delegation that they need an inspection prior to operating and moving.
Yep, that's correct.
if I may, Mr. Chairman, I mean, it's gonna involve more than just moving their stuff inside. I mean, there's gonna be like cameras and things like that. I mean, there's a pretty broad set of things that, the inspection folks are gonna wanna see before they'll sign off on it. I just wanna mention that, make sure the licensee's aware of that.
I'm sure they're always up for a drive to Talkeetna. Okay, then on license 17816 Talkeetna Traditions Limited Cultivate, operating plan change with delegation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None heard, so it's a 5-0 voice vote in the affirmative. There you go. All right, last one, urban extracts. You got a nice short list, right?
Oh, just one.
Oh.
We have a wager, 5 minutes or less.
Oh. Or it's free.
That's actually called cheating.
Okay, do we have a motion for license, 14432 Urban Extracts?
Motion to approve new product for license 14432 Urban Extracts, vape pen.
Second, okay. And what is it, vape pen?
I apologize, vape cartridges.
Vape cartridges, okay.
Yeah, vape cartridges, and, so this is something that you've actually already approved, and, it's just adding, an additional size, 0.3, instead of, half gram or gram, this is a 0.3.
All right, and the, hey, let me just ask you about your label. Is it on there pretty tight? I mean, is it something that, somebody can peel off? Yeah, well, I'm talking about the on the cartridge itself, the label on the cartridge. I see your cartridge is labeled, right?
Oh, you mean the actual glass cartridge?
Yeah.
That's, you can't get that off.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Not that hard to put a label on it.
No, yeah, no, you're talking about the actual glass,
I'm talking about
right?
the actual glass, yeah.
We pay for that custom.
That's how it goes, yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, thank you. Any questions on the product? Okay, all those in favor of approving the license 14432 Urban Extract?
Actually, I do have one quick question.
Okay, sure, go ahead.
On the photograph, it shows, are there 3 different, sizes for each?
So, I was in Portland wedding dress shopping, and Lisa sent this to me, and I didn't have time to review it, so she sent it in. This really should have been an MJ15, so this should have been amending, because this product already exists, and what only was approved was a gram and a half gram, and now we're adding a 0.3.
But are all 3, the 0.3, the half gram, and the gram, all gonna be on the same box?
Yes.
Yes, and then you mark it.
Yes.
Okay.
You mark which one is the right size. Only one in the box.
Order, make a set of boxes.
They can use it for any of the one products they put in, they just check the one they want to use. Yeah.
And these boxes are really actually pretty special. These are those child-proof boxes that a lot of vape pen producers don't put their products in child-resistant, and so these are really actually top-of-line boxes, so the most we can do to limit the expense on them, the better.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, then on license 14432 Urban Extracts, new product, kind of an amended product, but 0.3 gram product, for the product manufacturing facility. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? There you go.
Thank you.
5-0. All right, we have Steve Krupe and company here. What time is it? Yeah. You guys want to take like 5 minutes, since there's not a big crowd? Yeah. We'll give you 6, okay. Okay, and then Steve will get right with you.
Yeah, I tried to get medium to.
The conference is now in listen-only mode.
Okay, back on the record at 3:05. We have so much time and so little to do. We're going to, is there a motion to take item B under regulations and table it to the January meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay, any discussion? There's nothing on here. I don't think that we are time constrained on. This is partly out of deference to the new director to give him a chance to get up to speed on all this. And we do have some, actually, yeah, we'll just...
Did you maybe want to see if Mr. Krupe wanted to speak about the flavotoxin something? There was a question you guys asked at the beginning of the meeting.
We're just doing this, and then we're gonna get Mr. Krupe. Yep. No, I just want to take care of regs. So we'll do B, and I think, Madam Counsel, can we blow off C also until the public comment periods are closed? Could
You're on C.
well, we're on B and C. Mm-hmm. We'll do A when we get after Mr. Krupe, but we'd like to table. Did I said only B on the tabling motion, right? Yeah. Okay, so we'll do, so that is provide direction of staff,
in the absence of Mr. Jaime, I'd be,
yeah, we don't mind
tabling the rest of them as well until he can be here.
Okay, you want to amend it to,
important.
You want to amend it to, my poor daughter. Okay.
Lieutenant Jaime, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
You can amend that.
You want to amend it to add C?
Yes.
All right, there's an amendment.
So there's a motion
to amend.
To table.
Motion to table, B only. You want to amend it to add C?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so on the amendment to add C, all those in favor say aye.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
can I ask one question?
Go ahead, yeah.
I have notes from Dan that you actually took up a couple items in item C. Is that inaccurate? Application and renewal date taken up 11/14, and marijuana testing oversight taken up 11/14.
No, we didn't. We haven't considered any of these. No.
The note is wrong then. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay, so on the amendment,
Is that right?
all those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so amendment C passes. Okay, the main motion is to table regulations B, which is tab 72 through 81 to our January meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that passes. Okay, Mr. Krupe, please join us. So now we want to talk about the really nasty stuff. And tell us who you are.
So, Steve Krupe, I'm the quality manager with the Environmental Health Lab here in Anchorage. And first thing to talk about is one of the testing requirements. And what I'd like to do is start out with a question, give you the background, and end with a question. Same question, actually. So the question in regulation, one of the testing requirements is STEC, or Shiga toxin producing E. coli. And the question is, what is the board's intention with that test requirement? background, Shiga toxin, well, Shiga, the word Shiga is, there's no magic to that name. It's just the last name of the guy who discovered these toxins. There's no magic beyond that. But Shiga toxins are something that are generated by E. coli organisms. There are some E. coli organisms that are considered pathogenic and others that are non-pathogenic. Pathogenic ones are the ones that we're concerned about, and they produce this toxin, which commonly associated with foodborne outbreaks. So there are approximately 260 different E. coli organisms that can generate this toxin, so obviously to look for each of them individually is not really practical or cost-effective. And in our limited review to date of laboratories, there's been two different approaches towards this test requirement. One approach has been to look for the Shiga toxins using a method called qPCR. And what that does is it looks for the genetic material of the toxins to identify whether or not they've been produced by either one or more E. coli organisms that might be present. So you're actually looking for that genetic material. The other approach that we've seen with the laboratories is to test for just one E. coli organism called E. coli 0157. That's what it's known by. That particular serotype, as it's called, has been the most studied, the most tested, and documentation will tell you that about 35 to 40% of illnesses related to this toxin are due to 0157. So, a lab picking that, they're picking one that's the most likely to be the culprit. When there's an outbreak, 40% of the time it's going to be E. coli 0157. So it goes back to the original question, what's the intent? Do we want to look for essentially all the E. coli organisms that are pathogenic, or are we okay just looking for this one that 40% of the time is responsible for generating the toxins?
I think that's a really good question, and I think that the regulations, the testing regulations were written in large part by our erstwhile regulations drafter, who, as we recall, had a good explanation for everything. But
yeah, Virginia, I think was her name.
Yeah, I think so.
She drew heavily from other regulations in other states, Colorado notably, but also others, and it was a best first shot. But clearly, we now have new expertise available to us right here.
And we've got a few years under our belt.
Yeah. If I may, Mr. Chairman, we've talked a couple of times about the testing advisory committee. Were you part of that at any point? Okay. Perhaps a good way to go forward, and I've talked to Mr. Emmett about this. He's prepared to participate in that, and perhaps it would be good to have that group get together, include representatives from the 3 testing labs in the state, and other folks that might seem appropriate, and answer these, because I can't. I don't know the answer to that. I just know the history behind it. But I think it would be really helpful at this point to narrow that down, to refine that, to make it better, make it more meaningful.
Yeah, I agree, and it will give us guidance in terms of how we review labs. To review them to whatever the requirement is. Right now, like I said, we've got the one lab we reviewed is going one direction, another lab's going the other direction. So, which way do we want to go with this?
Yeah, we want consistency, and I kind of like these odds. 35 to 40% of illnesses caused by this, and this is whether it's lettuce or spinach or
meat.
Yeah, so this is kind of like the standard marker, right? In
it is a marker. I don't know that I would call it a standard marker, but 0157 is commonly looked for in meat. With that said, I believe in 2011 there was an issue in Europe with an outbreak that was related to a different E. coli organism. So, I'm not going to put all my eggs in the 0157 basket, but
never let go ahead.
Do you think that would allow us to focus our testing protocols a little bit better for the products that we're actually dealing with?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Well, I mean, could we, it sounds like you're suggesting we could make our regs better to test for the products that are really of concern in this industry.
Either look for all S-Tech or just look for this one E. coli serotype.
Looking for all of it, I mean, that's like.
Well, yeah, there's about 260 in that
Right.
all, but the one way that you can get at the all is using this qPCR technique, which is looking for the genetic material of the toxin that's generated.
Thanks, I didn't understand that the first time around.
Yeah, no, it's fine. That is one way to do it, and so looking for E. coli 0157, generally called a cultural technique, and then you got qPCR, a different technique. The qPCR is a more expensive technique in terms of the upfront investment. So that is a possible challenge for a laboratory, something to keep in mind.
So that's, how long does a QCPR test take as opposed to a culture test?
They're not that far different.
Okay.
It's not like difference between days and weeks.
Yeah, but you're still, what are you doing? You're not trying to, you are trying to strip DNA off, right, to have it?
Well, not strip DNA, but look for the DNA.
You're looking for it, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And it could be live or dead material.
Sounds like a topic for the planning, for the testing committee. Yeah. I mean, I like the idea of, I mean, if QCPR, if we required that, what are we talking in the way of, how big a bench you got to build to do QCPR? I mean, what are we talking dollar-wise?
In terms of dollar-wise, that I can't speak to.
Okay, hardware-wise. Can you do QCPR in your shop?
We do have PCRs in our shop, yes.
Okay, and so is it?
We're not talking huge laboratory modifications, no.
Okay, all right. I'm just wondering what kind of, I can Google it. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's a relatively small unit. It's smaller than like a mass spec that we'd be looking at using for like pesticide testing or aflatoxin testing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they would get return on their investment, I think.
They would, and like I said, we're not looking at changing the structure of a lab or adding on to a lab.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, yeah, you know what, I think we can ask the director we know who the members of the desk committee been, kind of poll them and try to convene something here in the next, between now and January.
Certainly poll the members that were part of the group, but there was input. I know that former Director McConnell had that other people were interested in being part of that group too. So we'll want to cast a little wider net.
What other people? I mean, I'm not opposed. I'm just curious.
We heard from the lab in Fairbanks as well as the lab in Ketchikan that they had interest in being part of the technical working group.
Oh, absolutely. That's why I said I think it's crucial to have representation from each of the labs for this conversation.
And then I know there's a lab in Juneau that has an application out there pending, and I don't know for sure that they want to be involved, but we should try to capture them as well.
Question for staff: would it be practical? Well, I guess I should ask the acting director, or the interim director, but perhaps some space could be made available at the AMCO office so that the group could gather there, and then telephonically for those who aren't in town. So could that facility be made available, do you think?
Yeah, we could assist in providing facilities that's got conference space for this group to convene.
Good.
Well, like I said, Mr. Chairman, I spoke to Mr. Emmett about this because I think it's a fairly important topic. I know he indicated he is absolutely ready to go down this road with you, and I think it's a really important topic.
Very good. Okay, so that takes care of that. Then we want to talk about. So we had some discussion late years ago about Wednesday about some marijuana that was held up. It failed a test, and they stored it. And they were concerned that what did they say?
If I may,
yeah, go ahead.
So it failed for E. coli.
Okay,
was seized and held in storage for a period of time, and the concern expressed by someone here was that that period of time would have allowed aflatoxins to develop in that product that could actually be of greater concern than the E. coli that was originally detected. Is that accurate?
It's certainly a possibility. I guess the first question I would ask is, I presume it was tested for aspergillus.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was aspergillus.
I got it.
It was aspergillus.
Yeah, the aflatoxins will come from aspergillus.
Okay, I misspoke.
No, that's fine. So when you have aspergillus present, right amount of water, immediately these aflatoxins are going to be produced. When you're testing for aspergillus versus aflatoxins, you're essentially testing for the precursor, what's going to create these toxins. The other approach is you can look for the toxins themselves. Different states have different approaches. Some will test for aspergillus, and some will say, no, go straight to aflatoxin testing. And I know one state where they had, like our microbial testing and regulations, it's pretty much zero tolerance. With the aflatoxin testing, there's a certain allowance for some aflatoxin to be present. I imagine there's toxicology done that said, okay, this amount is not going to harm average population.
So I think part of the concern that was brought forward is material that fails this particular test can be requested to the office to be transferred to a concentrate manufacturer and turned into a concentrate. And the concern that was raised, I believe, was that when turned into a concentrate, the aflatoxin would not be removed in the same way that other sort of the other stuff gets removed when it's concentrated like this. And the concern was that the aflatoxin would stay through the concentration process.
That is a possibility. Salmonella and E. coli doesn't take too high a temperature. I mean, it's just like cooking your food. You reach a high enough temperature and you're going to destroy it. But it's not necessarily the case with aflatoxin. So if you were going to look to move that material to a concentrate facility, you want to evaluate what temperatures they're operating at. And I don't have the magic number to know what temperature do you need to reach, but that is a consideration.
Okay. Cool.
So, Mr. Chairman, if going back to the whole discussion about the testing advisory group, perhaps they can get together and maybe even put that on the list of things to look at and see, what we can do with our regs to identify and deal with that potential problem.
And as our contractor, any suggestions that you might have looking at our testing reg, we'd be happy to hear them.
Sure, and the STEC option here is for me the most pressing from the standpoint of reviewing the labs relative to whatever the intent of the regulation is.
Okay, then if the committee get together and they can come up with a recommendation, then we could kick off a regs project in January.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, so we talked a little bit about the intent or the impetus for the current regs and the origins of them, but I guess what I'm proposing is that I would like to see that group come up with some recommendations for regulation changes, rather than. Was that understood? I'm the only one? Okay, good.
Mr. Chair, may I throw out an idea? And this is for consistency in the industry. Maybe it would help to have Rob Carter, the state agronomist who's doing all of the testing requirements for hemp, join you. So if anyone's growing both, they don't have to worry about two different sets of standards.
There's a lot of nodding heads in the room. That's a great idea.
Okay.
Very good. Very good.
I'm sorry, what do you mean by growing both?
I don't know if there will be licensees. There is a potential under the hemp program. It may not be in the same facility,
okay.
But they'd be growing both marijuana as defined under 17 and hemp as defined under 3 titles.
So question I have for the board is, we're actively reviewing labs as AMCO has given us direction. I'm reviewing the lab in Anchorage right now. How do I approach this? Do I just... right now we've been reviewing them for tests for which they were approved on their license, and they're approved for different things depending on what they proposed. Do we continue doing that? Do you want us to continue doing that?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'm not sure if this is exactly what you're referring to, but my concern is that in the process of reviewing a lab, there might you might be bringing, you're bringing in certainly a different perspective to that lab than perhaps was brought when they were originally licensed. So there might be a dynamic where you go into a lab that's been operating and say, well, you need to do this differently, but then another lab's not being held to the same standard. So I think in the interest of having all the labs held to the same standard with the same expectations, I think it kind of makes it puts it makes more urgent the need to update the regs, then hold these labs to those new regs, which I think is also why it's so important to have the labs participate in the process.
I agree. And, one issue that you can run into if you have a lab having this one approach and the other approach is in the retest scenario. One lab fails, goes to a second another second facility for the retest, that might come up negative. And that is a question mark that would need to be resolved. One of the, you can tell me if I'm out of line to bring this up, but one of the things in the regs packet was the retesting regulation, and part of that was if a cultivation facility requested retest, that it would need to be done in duplicate to partly help answer the question, one pass, one fail, well then it's a flip of the coin, right? So you request the retest in duplicate, so that kind of 2 out of 3 sort of thing. But you're still going to have that scenario if it's microbial related, where one passes, one fails, but it's 2 different tests. So are they equivalent? How do we balance these results? And that's why I asked the question: for today, how should we review these labs? Review them per the license, or get going on the working group?
I think, can I just maybe rephrase your question for the board? It sounds like there are 2 labs with method A and method B for testing for this particular thing. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but their paperwork says, okay, I'll do method A and I'll do method B. And he needs to know, okay, we're reviewing them based on this person doing method A, so he's reviewing their methods for method A, and this other person is reviewing for method B, and so he'll review them through method B if we're basing it on their existing paperwork. And he just needs to know if that's how you'd like him to review the application, since these regulations are kind of up in the air and the working group is up in the air.
Okay, so here's my question. Do you feel that there's any threat to public safety by allowing the labs by evaluating the labs against their original proposed operating procedures? Maybe a little bit broad question.
Yeah, I would hedge on that question. Is a possibility there? Yeah.
Sure.
How reasonable is it? I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I would offer that I think it would be unreasonable of us to, having licensed any licensee under certain conditions, to then go back and change those conditions on the fly while they're trying to conduct business. I don't think that's reasonable. So I think, again, it goes back to, getting their input and yours and everyone, all the other interested parties, perhaps even a couple of cultivators,
Sure.
since they're going to be involved with this process rather intimately, and look at retesting. I read your notes on retesting. It was actually quite informative. And then, again, come back to the board with some recommendations for a regs change, if necessary. Right. I know it's a bureaucratic approach, but I think it's the reasonable one, because I don't think changing the rules on the fly for these labs, I don't think it's fair.
And it's actually, legally it's kind of impossible. Right. So.
Yeah, no, I can work with that.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
What I heard also was that 2 different methods testing for the same thing may get you 2 different results. And so if we have under one process a failed test, maybe under the other process it wouldn't be failed. Well, then it's going to come back to us for the staff to say, which one do you believe, and do you release the product or not release the product? And so I would argue the opposite, in that if we're going to make a cultivator destroy a product, or to have a cultivator possibly be put over the barrel by a manufacturer because they say, well, you can't sell this stuff, so we're going to pay you X, which I think we heard, because of the test, then we should be able to authorize a retest. Well, if authorizing the retest is probably going to show a different result, then we're over a barrel. We then have two different processes testing for the same thing. We have one failed and one positive. Who's going to play Solomon and decide that test A was okay and test B wasn't, or vice versa? So I think what I'm hearing is if he evaluates which test is the best one, and both labs or all three labs should do that same test. So if we do a retest, it's retesting on the same process. So theoretically, you would, if you get a different result, it's some other problem, and I think that's what's in the retest regulations to solve that. But right now, if the example, the cultivator that was talking to us yesterday, who says I don't listen, but I do, once in a while. Basically, he's saying, I got a failed test and I got a positive test. And so half of my stuff I could do and half of it I had to basically give away to somebody because he wasn't going to pay me what it was worth. If a single test done in the same way in two different labs gets a better result for that cultivator, then I don't know why we would allow two different processes to take place. So maybe I'm missing what your point is, but for me, what I'm hearing is if you have two different tests and can get two different results, then a retest doesn't tell us anything.
Yes, if the retest is done by a different method, yeah, that's problematic. And so, the best option is to get the retest done at the same facility or at a facility doing the same method. Then you're going to avoid that scenario. It still begs the question that you have different labs taking different approaches, and what's the intent that we want to have in regulations? My original question. But right now, best case scenario is for retests to be done either at the same facility or by the same method at a different facility.
And so I think the board in one way can say to you, if test lab A is doing a different test, you should evaluate their process on that one. But staff, if they get a retest, needs to make sure that the lab that's retesting can do the same method. And that may be more on staff burden until the testing group can say all testing labs must use process A and don't use process B, and then we can fix that. But so I think in terms of what Mr. Schulte's saying, you need to evaluate them on what we've approved them to do. But we need to be aware of the fact that if somebody's doing process A and they fail, the retest has to be through process A if we're going to get a more valid result.
Correct. I don't disagree with that at all. Question, Mr. Emmett, while you were gone, we volunteered you for a bunch of stuff.
Oh, yeah. Happy to help.
Are there any cultivators currently on that testing advisory committee? So he is on there. I wonder if a second one could be put on, just so we get a little.
If Mr. Emmett is going to talk, can you talk into a microphone?
Yeah, pull a chair there, Brandon.
Good afternoon, Brandon Emmett.
Sorry, man, I kind of blindsided you there.
Yeah, no worries. Hey guys. So yeah, there's already one cultivator on the board, or on that committee. Leaf, he's one of the biggest growers in the state, and he's got a sizable outdoor operation. I think a great addition to that committee would be a smaller indoor grower.
Yeah.
Would kind of round things out pretty well. It would also bring a more diverse perspective, maybe a limited grower.
I wonder if the industry could offer up another name to participate. Yeah, no, not right this second. No, I'm just saying, after the meeting, because this whole committee's gonna get together after the fact anyway, so, but I'm just thinking, get a little bit more diversity, bringing somebody in from the hemp side would be a good addition. And then, maybe another grower from, is growing a completely different environment would be a great addition, because we've got a lot of questions to answer that I'm certainly not able to answer. But the goal is to potentially come up with some recommendations for a regs change that we can apply across the board. This would, by the way, include representatives from each of the testing labs. So.
Okay, very good. We got any more questions for Mr. Krupe? Okay, we appreciate you coming by again. And when you guys do testing, you can talk about pesticides. And actually, it would be interesting to get some feedback from the labs, what they think they would have to invest to do that. And that's why we have that, why we're working on that 50% investment rule for testing labs also.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
So if I could provide a bit of insight on the pesticides issue. I know that it is very expensive to test for a wide range of pesticides. Something that could be helpful and might reduce some of the financial burden is if the state could establish some of the most egregious pesticides that should absolutely never be placed on a plant, and have tests specifically geared towards some of these pesticides that we know cause defined harm, as defined in the literature, and then we say, okay, we are going to test for this. Probably shouldn't be using pesticides on your consumables anyways, but it would give us a starting block at least.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think there's a couple of different ways to approach it. I think we can. I mean, if I was a cannabis consumer, I'd be looking for something that might actually on the label say, we don't use pesticides, and then of course it would be up to us to figure out a way to confirm that. But
It could be quite difficult. Many cultivators do. They put pesticides, none, and then you can reference their operating plan and see, okay, are they actually approved to use any pesticides? Do they say they're going to do any pesticides? I think most people are good actors. The proof's in the pudding, of actually being able to look and see, okay, your operating plan says you only use this pesticide or you use none, and when we test for the 2-3 most horrible ones that we can afford to test for, it comes up that you haven't used those, and so we can give you reasonable benefit of the doubt that you're not using pesticides in your product.
Roger. Okay, good.
Mr. Krupe, back to your very first question, how did we arrive at the testing criteria that we've got? It occurred to me we didn't have any testing labs in the state at the time, so we were kind of working in a vacuum there. So I think this is a great time and opportunity to improve on that. Mr. Emmett, were you chairing that group? The testing?
Yes, I was the chair.
Okay.
Went from being the chair to being not there.
Okay, well, you're back.
I think Mr. Miller was the board member on the testing group. You didn't volunteer? I thought you volunteered to replace Brandon. You might check the minutes, but I think you did.
So, before you came back in, Michael had indicated that potentially if you needed a conference room to instigate this discussion, I realize that some of the players are going to have to be on the phone, but maybe you could just, would it be okay for him just to coordinate that with the AMCO office? The interim director, we just...
Yeah, we don't want to blindside the many times. So.
Yeah, so as far as convening working groups and committees, that is a part of this process I am substantially less familiar with. But I would say that working with the office and getting this together would...
Perhaps the chairman could convey our request to the interim director and then...
Yeah, no, I'm sure I'll run to the director again one time or another, yeah. And we talked about, possibility of a number of working groups. I know you did, and that's something that, maybe we can figure out a way to frame up.
I can definitely make a note that this is requested, and in my brief to him after this next week sometime mention that it was talked about and give him the information. But again, I am not familiar with the process.
No, well, they've just been these guys, and most of the working groups have been like 2 board members and the director. So, okay. All right, cool. Any other questions for them?
No, not for them.
Okay. All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Which brings us to regulations and board requests. So, anybody got any requests for regulations?
Mr. Chair, I don't have a request. I have some information that, maybe our attorney can help us sort of look at. But, we, as you all know, I come from Juneau, and we have a, retail operation down there we've talked about that has a significant, in arrears on their sales tax. And in talking with, our city borough attorney, he identified, our tax code, our sales tax code, basically says that if you're behind in your sales taxes and you're not paying up and you're not complying with any, confession of judgment, and we take you to court, our ordinances, our local ordinances, allow us to go to court to seize all personal property, which we then can sell to recoup our taxes. Now, we have always on this board required all of the licensees to have that portion taken out of their leases that say, if you don't pay your lease, your landlord can go in and seal the place up, but they cannot confiscate, and they have to call AMCO to seize the product. But yeah, they can get the equipment or whatever, but they can't seize the product. The city attorney basically asked, do we know what other municipalities' rules are if you don't pay your sales taxes? And so I'm bringing that up in that, I realized in Juneau, because of my involvement, my discussions, the attorney said if we did that, we would immediately call AMCO and say, we're going in there, you need to come get the product, realizing that we don't have the right. But our current tax code, the way our ordinances are written, and I don't know how Anchorage has done it because they don't have a sales tax, but they do have a bed tax, and they do have marijuana tax. Fairbanks has a marijuana tax, but not a general tax. City of Bethel, Petersburg, Wrangell, Sitka, they all have sales taxes, and I don't know what their city ordinances allow. But normally, most cities that have rules on taxes go as far as Title 29 allows them to go. So whether there's any prohibition or anything in Title 29, I don't know. I just wanted to bring that up and caution, again, vendors, licensees, pay your taxes. You do not want a city borough coming in and saying, you're closed down and I'm seizing everything. And you just don't want that. But so I bring that up. I don't know if there's a solution other than cities ought to be aware that maybe under the rules you can't take the marijuana, but if they have lights and ventilation and generators and whatever, they could lose that. But that's a pretty extreme position the city would take. Somebody would have to really be in arrearage and be obstinate and not paying and maybe not show up in court when the city goes to court. But I just wanted to bring that up as something that we need to consider. And I don't know that there's a regulatory thing on our part that we can do, but I think it is something that we need to be aware of and get some ideas or research on.
You said confession of judgment, which usually means someone's agreed they have the debt. Did you mean default judgment? Where they just don't show
No,
up?
we have a confession of judgment in Juneau, and basically, somebody that's in arrears in sales taxes, that's our first step. And basically, it's a legal document. And so if they don't pay, then they're in default of that. And that's when we go to court. We go to the judge and we say, we have this signed confession and judgment. They agree that they owe this. They agree to pay. They haven't. And then the judge has a right to order us, to allow us to sweep bank accounts, which in marijuana is really hard to do because they don't have bank accounts. But some owners may have personal bank accounts, and our code says we can go there because they're personally liable. And we can go and seize a house that they own, because basically that's the way we as a city, so we have pretty broad powers as a city, if people don't pay their taxes. After 3 years under the state law, we can take their house if they don't pay property taxes. Now, they have a year or two after we foreclose to get it back, but, you know, you get 3 years behind on your property tax, and the municipality is going to come in and take your house. And so we have that same power under sales tax. So I just wanted that to be sort of on the record, something that I think the licensees need to deal if they have local taxes, property and or sales taxes, that, you know, most municipalities have some pretty stringent abilities, whether they implement any of that or whatever. But I know we worked on that with leases, but I don't think we as a board can go to a municipality and say you have to take that off your books in terms of ordinances, because they would say, no, sorry, you're just an advisory board or licensing board for that. You're not going to tell us. But I think we need to understand that's out there, and whether a municipality would actually use it or not, is hard to say.
That might be a great coordination project for our new local government specialist when that person comes online.
Might be to find that out, because, you know, I mean, I'm familiar with that. Maybe Mr. Springer is with the city of Bethel, but probably most of the rest of us have not read the tax codes in Anchorage as to what our liability is if we don't pay. So, licensee beware.
All right, thanks. So at the last meeting, I asked, I don't know if we've got made into a project about changing the regulations to allow ANCSA corporations to become licensees. Was that the one you were arguing with me against?
It was, and I think it was one that we did talk about, but we dropped. In terms of doing it immediately, but yeah, I think it was just, and a lot of it had to do with, you know, exactly what their status was in terms of, you know, local governments and all kinds of stuff. But I mean, they do a lot of businesses, but we do have the regs where we want to know who the owners are, and I understand that an ANCSA corporation is owned by, you know, 22,000 people, and 13,000 of those live in California. But you know, they're all technically under law an owner of something. So
right, and they are, whether the regionals or the village corporations, they're all Title 10 corporations in the state. So okay, well I won't pull that out right now, although I did mention it to Anna Hoffman, and she didn't think it was a bad idea, so I'll bring it up again sometime.
You know, I think if there was some, you know, Anna's a very bright woman, and I'm sure she would like to do that, but, you know, I'd like to see sort of what the legal implications are of some kind of corporation like that, you know, owning a retail store or a grow operation, and how that fits into our regs, and then I might be convinced, but it may give me more to argue with the attorneys about.
But they will be able to buy into testing labs, though.
I would think so.
Yeah. Okay.
And you're certain you're dealing with the corporations and not the governments who
Yes.
will assert
Yes.
sovereign
Yes.
immunity?
Yes. No.
Okay, I just want to make sure there's no sovereign immunity claim.
No. We're
Okay.
talking about the Title 10 corporations, the regional corporations, and the village corporations. We're not talking about tribes. That's a whole other one, and that's a matter of getting them recognized by the state for objections. So, okay. Anybody else got their local government? Their local government recognized in the statute. All right. Just look in your eyes. Okay. Anybody got any board requests? Any board requests for regulations projects? Not seeing any. Boy, that's a record. Staff recommendations for regulation projects?
There are recommendations. I haven't had enough time, as much time to review them. That would be tab 71 in your packets. I can open the phone and see if Jane is available to speak to those.
That's right, you said she wanted to get on here.
Well, no, we're on A. Staff recommendation.
B and C, we
Yeah.
didn't table
Yep.
the front part.
Yep.
And I think part of the first request deals with something that Steve talked about in terms of the number of colonies or the number of something. Certainly that can be sent, I think, to the testing committee. And then the other one was dealing with
The conference is no longer in listen-only mode.
which I don't know that I'm going to deal with today.
No, we can, and this is just staff recommendations, they will come up again, and Jane, are you on?
She may have been under the impression that this was tabled with the rest of it.
Okay, that's fine, yeah, we'll talk about this, we'll talk about this in January. All right.
So, before we,
Yeah.
at one point in the meeting,
Uh-huh.
now that I'm brain dead, I made a motion for a working group to get started.
Okay.
The metric one?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure that we captured and identified that and didn't lose it in the weeds. And then Mr. Schulte has a question about that?
Well, yeah, so we discussed it, but I'm not sure if we identified it.
The conference is now in listen-only mode.
I said, enforcement staff and at least one participant from each licensee.
Okay.
I'd have to,
For each licensee category?
yes.
License category,
You
yeah.
did say that. You did say that. It should be on the record.
Okay, so then, are you gonna take point on that, to get that going, or?
That was part of the question is because I would like a couple more working groups, but who takes the lead on reaching out to the licensees, getting the schedule sent out, and, getting these folks to volunteer and start documenting the information and getting it back to us?
Mr. Chair? That's generally been the director, so I assume that Michael will forward this on, in her after-action report. If the new director's got any concern or question, then he probably will call the chair.
Sure.
I would hope that's be the case. I don't think we have the power to set up working groups and to deal with all, because there's a cost and staff behind that, and I think that's the director's burden.
Good, fair point. Lacey, did you want to contribute something to this conversation?
Yeah, sure. Only if you give us a copy of that statement you put out yesterday. No, I haven't seen it, okay, just read about it.
Lacey Wilcox, President of the Alaska Marijuana Industry Association. So I think you're right, you can't make the workload determination without that having been footed pretty fresh. What we would maybe ask for is just agreement that it is something that you would like to explore, and that we've already given you the list of what we would like to be able to participate in. So metric, school, testing, we want to be there. Transportation, we want to be there. And whatever the scope is, we just want you guys to have said forward with that concept, and then for how to implement it, we're ready and able to put these things together at the request of that director. But I'm asking for you guys' support.
Just as sort of, excuse my ignorance, but I would just caution, I'm happy that we're working with the AMIA, and I think that's a great thing, but are all licensees part of that group?
No.
I would just be concerned that that's the only group we're reaching out to,
and
if we're reaching out, that we make sure that we get a good cross-section of the industry.
I would expect that all licensees would be invited to participate, not just AMIA member licensees. It's participation from industry that we've asked for regardless of your affiliation with AMIA. We just would be glad to offer you suggested people who have expertise if you want it.
All right, thank you.
And then the other thing is I'm happy to bring all of these requests to our individual who was recently appointed. I'll say there's going to be a lot of change happening in the office right now, and adding a lot of working groups and that sort of thing is possibly going to delay work on other things that you guys have mentioned are priorities for you, such as approvals of requested changes or requested transfer product, and just remember this person is going to be having a lot to do right now.
And that's great. Let's get the list going.
Along those same lines, I'm just looking forward to the next meeting here. And there's a note here that says that applications must be deemed complete and other information for inclusion in the board packets must be received by January 3rd. Don't wait. If you got something, I mean, this has been a recurring theme for the last 3 days. If anybody here or on the phone has an issue that they need to bring before the board, an application, an operating plan change or something, please get it in as soon as you possibly can so that it can be considered. We're going into the holiday season. We've got a lot of downtime. There's a lot of people in the AMCO office right now. They're down, they're short people, the workload's going up. It's a perfect storm of stress, so please don't wait to get stuff into them.
Yes, exactly. Okay.
And I hate to get back on this subject,
go ahead.
and then I'll be quiet. I would like, during public testimony, there was I would like to see a working group worked up on the waste. Apparently, we made the commitment that we would do that back in January or February of this year. We did not. It was specifically mentioned by at least one licensee. And I know that we have a lot of requests for working groups, but it seems like we are requesting one for transportation, waste, and there was at least one or two more. I'll check my notes on. Advertising.
Are we still fighting with advertising?
We are. I was working with the director. I felt like I needed more input from outside, and I'm not positive that request was ever sent out to licensees. So.
Yeah, and I was particularly struck by about waste, about the comment that somebody said, maybe I'm throwing away 35 pounds of money, so let's, and that's something that can be, we certainly hear from the only people who would be interested in buying waste are, concentrate manufacturers right there, yeah. So, it'd be interesting to hear from them maybe, since we don't have a regulations project right now, maybe during some public comment or something at the next meeting. And maybe we can start a project or just, if it's actually a regulation. If somebody says, hey, I just, came up with 35 pounds of, green that I'm tempted to throw away, but do you want to buy it? You don't need a regulation for that.
There is some concern about the issue you were discussing, but there's also, I think, a lot of concern in the industry that we're required to store the waste for 3 days.
Right.
And I think that's more where the working group wanted to get together and maybe come up with some recommendations for this board that, do we need to keep it 3 days? Because it is causing big issues at certain cultivations.
That's okay. That'll be, okay.
So the list is, I hear it, is a working group for testing, metric, waste disposal, transportation, and advertising. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
And nothing else.
And nothing else. A cornucopia of nothing else. Okay. Anybody got anything out of the marijuana mailbox they want to wave around? Okay, I just flipped through it.
And there was, tab 18 was the consideration of the overlapping license premises, and you had tabled it to the end of this meeting. I just want to confirm
that was because there's going to be a regulation.
Yeah, that we're shifting that also, or didn't know if you wanted to talk to council about it.
Let's talk about it, give it a chance, since we've now punted the project to January.
Okay.
Alaska Elite's, diagram was approved originally that way. So, I mean, that hasn't changed. So they are approved by this body to operate that way. What we're appealing is staff saying, no, the control board shouldn't have done that, or the interpretation has changed, I think is a more appropriate way to phrase that. And so, we're fine tabling it to January, that nothing's gonna hinder our business flow for that.
That was my biggest concern, is that she got a chance to.
Good. All right, thank you. Okay, we want to have a very brief public recap like we've done a couple of times? Or did we? Anybody want to tell us what a great job we did this week? No pressure.
Janet Wildstein, I work with the staff a lot, and my team works with the staff a lot, and what some people don't see is, sometimes I get tripped up on, well, what does this really mean, and what's this transfer ad supposed to look like? And there's been so many times that I've emailed TJ, Jane, Michael, I know I'm leaving staff members out, but, I'm sorry, Jacqueline, Jack, yes, and they have given me so much helpful input and taken time away from them reviewing the applications that are in the queue. And I know I'm not the only one that they provide this really helpful help to. So I know there was a lot of frustrations this week, and there was a lot of emotional not blow-ups, but emotion coming out. And I just want to say the staff really does do a great job. And so thank you for that. And I also want to remind the public this entire board is volunteer. So these people are taking time out of their personal lives. They're taking time away from their families. They're taking time away from their jobs. They're taking time away from their businesses to sit here for 3 days and address the industry's concerns. So while I think by and large we were pretty respectful as an industry, I think that sometimes we weren't as respectful as we should have been. And I think that we need to keep in mind that these are volunteers. These are not paid bureaucrats. They're not paid regulators. They are volunteer board, and they're volunteering for the sake of Alaska and for the sake of our industry, and thank you for that. So that's all I had to say.
Thank you, Jenna. Appreciate that. How about you? All right, anybody else? Yes, no, maybe so. Okay, very good. We'll move to board comments. Who wants to go first? I see a red microphone. Go right ahead.
I'm going to sound like the old man in an AA meeting that talks to the newbie that says, I've wasted more beer than you drank. They say to the newbie. But I wanted to address some of the issues and the concern that I have, and I certainly voted to retain the director. But and I know that there may be people in the industry that are happy about that, and there are probably some that may not be. And in deference to our attorney, I'm going to give a sort of a Juneau approach. I came to Alaska in 1975. I went to work for the city of Borough Juneau. I then went to work for the state in '76, and I retired in 2003, and I've been volunteering since then. And I want you to be aware, I sat down this morning at 4 o'clock when I couldn't sleep. I have either served in state government or on an advisory board in the last 40 years with 9 governors. That means 9 different lieutenant governors. That means some that did 4 years, some that did 8 years. I have served under, at my count, and I may have missed a couple, 9 commissioners of health and social services. Most of my duty was in health and social service, although I did work for Governor Cooper's ONB for 3 years, and I worked for a representative. I've been on the Juneau Assembly for 8 years. I've served with 21 different persons in 8 years, 5 mayors in 8 years. This is my 4th year on this board, and I have served with 7 members, many of whom aren't here. And in 4 years, I'm going to be serving with my 3rd director. Just want you to be aware that I can probably go back to one of my first public meetings with the Advisory Board on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse back in 1980, and the complaints and the issues raised by AMIA on the first day will mirror exactly what the providers were telling the Advisory Board on Alcohol and Drug Abuse in 1980. And almost every board I've served on, I've served as a health and social service representative on the Council of Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault. I have sat through mental health board meetings, mental health trust meetings. I have staffed the Alcoholism Advisory Board for almost 12 years as a division director. I've sat on working groups. And so you're going to see change in the Marijuana Control Board office. Some of that's going to make you happy. I would bet you in about 2 years you'll be back here complaining that you don't like what's going on. You know, the average time that a director in state government is about 2.5 years. The average commissioner is probably less than 2 years. Governors are generally 4 years because that's the elected, but appointed people in exempt service, their average time is not very long. When I served as state director for the Division of Alcohol and Drug Abuse, I served almost 10 years and then was reappointed for another 1.5 years. The nationwide average for my counterpart in other states was 18 months. So please, be aware that change is the only thing that's constant. And you don't always get what you want when you get the change you want. You know, be cautious about the gleefulness, be cautious about the angst, about the change. The world will go on. Your businesses will go on one way or the other. But it just, to me, I just wanted to remind everybody that I realized that this week, 3 days was very emotional. I lost a lot of sleep over this particular meeting. But I also need to remind myself that I've been through change probably every 6 months since I've been in Alaska. There's been a change that has affected me somehow, some way. And I'm still here and still arguing about things. and maybe for the good or the difference. But just please be aware that your input's important to us, that we do listen. I do listen. I don't maybe not always agree with you. You won't always get the answer you want from me, but I will listen. And I will try to be as respectful as I can. But we just need to be aware that especially in this day and age, and as fast as things move, I used to tell the story that when I first came to Alaska, nobody had computers. You know, we used dumb terminals at the state office. So, you know, somebody would write you a letter. It'd take 4 days to get in the mail. And then you'd read it. And then you'd think about it. And then you'd have to call a secretary, and you'd have to dictate something, and that secretary would type it up. And 2 days later, you might get the draft, and then you review it. So you got 4 days, right? Today, you get an email, and some of us get really mad if we don't get a response in 2 minutes. And oftentimes that response is really irresponsible because we only took 2 minutes to think about our answer. So communication moves too fast, and sometimes we get really bad responses. So, sound like the crotchety old man that I am, just be aware that the Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times, and that's not always a benefit. And that's my comment on this week, but I've lost a lot of sleep over this, and I was just thinking about all of the stuff that has happened and all of the thing in my professional life and volunteer life. Change is the only thing that's really constant across these last 40-some years. So, thank you.
All right, thanks, Mr. Jones. And less crotchety old man than just old-timer. Mr. Miller.
I'm not going to get crotchety. I would just like to thank the staff. I mean, I know you guys take the brunt of the disappointment and the confusion, and unfortunately a lot of the things we assign to you and we delegate to you guys. So we do appreciate it. I will stop down to the office next week and let them know how much we appreciate it. But you guys do take the brunt of the decisions we make. And, you know, that's not really fair, but unfortunately I can't really change it. So I do want to thank you guys, though.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Miller.
I'll make sure staff hears that. Thank you.
You're not qualified to be crotchety anyway.
I'm getting there.
You're getting there. Schulte.
Not a fair figure out where that leaves me. I too want to thank staff. I mean, you guys do an amazing job, and not just those here in the room. I mean, please convey that to the folks back at the office. I really appreciate it. Anything we can do to make your job less stressful, I will seek to do. You know, for the folks that came here, spent their time in the room and on the phone, thanks for all of your input. I will do all that I can. It's, you know, one voice out of 5, out of many, really, to, you know, help you guys be successful, and that's one of my missions for the foreseeable future. So thanks for all your time, and look forward to seeing some of you in Juneau.
All right, when are you going flying again?
Actually, I don't fly. I got sim training next week. I don't fly again for 2 weeks.
Oh, really? All right. Okay, so one of the best pieces of political advice I ever got from one of my best mentors, Jack Coghill, a long time ago, was piss and moan, but don't hold a grudge. And it took me a while to learn how to apply that, but it you know, has started over the years to stand me in good stead. So I'm going to piss and moan a little bit. Actually, I'm going to brag. First of all, I'm going to brag. I'm really proud because I'm in Muscovy, Alaska 3 times in the last 2 days. This morning I was in an article where it was described that Mr. Jones and I were called out saying that, picking on you guys, AMIA, saying that AMIA wants less regulation. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but there were a couple other things in the article that I've asked people who might be in a position to do something about to respond to, where it said that there's a number of open funded vacancies in the AMCO office as a result of Erica McConnell's work. There's only 2 open positions in the office. Local government specialist, which is a transfer from DCRA into the office, and they work with local governments and regulation interpretation and helping with the, you know, publication process. And the other one is the program coordinator. And my understanding is that the job descriptions for both of those are being revised. So if anybody thinks that there's a bunch of open positions in the AMCO office, there are not. Chairman Klein of the ABC board and I had lunch with the new director today. Had a nice meeting with him. He seems like a pretty cool guy. I told him I got scared when I read your resume, man. He said, "What?" I said, "Well, you're like cyber sleuth, and you went to this Department of Homeland Security course on removing protester devices." And I'm like, you know, if I'm walking down the streets of Hong Kong, you try to take my cell phone to put it into a reader, you got another thing coming. Well, then I looked up the Department of Homeland Security course, and it's how to undo protesters from, you know, chained up to D9 cats and trees and stuff. But then fortuitously, I found a picture on Twitter where over in Iraq, it says Iraqi protesters are bringing lions to protests now to fend off police dogs. So I said, yeah, well, I hope that training in removing protester devices helps you out with that. So yeah, it's been a long week. I also voted to retain the director, just because I personally didn't have any gripe with the job she was doing. Yeah, I heard complaints, had encouragement to, but I voted the way that I felt I should vote. And I just want everybody to understand that. And I learned something from everything that I heard all week. Particularly when the fellow from Fairbanks came up about his taxes, that was very elucidating. You got to remember, 3 of us are prohibited from having any interest in the marijuana industry. Okay, myself, Mr. Jones, and Lieutenant Jaime. Okay, by statute, can't have any. So, you know, and in Bethel, we don't have any establishments, we don't have any legal grows, we got a store about to open, so it's not like I get a chance to hang out and watch, you know, legal grows going on and see how they do business, okay? So when people say, well, you guys don't understand what's going on, maybe we don't, you know, and educate us, you know? You got people to be heard, come up and say, hey, I just want to tell you what's going on with me. I'm doing really good, and here's why. Or I'm losing it all, and here's why. Okay? We need to hear those stories. It's give and take here, you know? It's give and take, and I've always encouraged that. And we're getting better at it. We've only been in business since July of 2015. And some of you guys have only been in business since, January of 2016, right? So everything is still new. The regulations are new. When we were having lunch with the director, I said, you know, I've been talking the last 2 days about trying to find some MBA student or somebody, and actually a guy approached me in the hall, got a business degree, and he wants to become a consultant, and he said, I can probably do some business process analysis on the regs. I said, write a 388C 306 for Dummies book. You know, but I told the director, I said, because he was talking about he's going to put whiteboards in his office, and as he sits down with the staff for the next few weeks, and he's going to really lay it out because he's that kind of guy. And I talked about this, and he said, yeah, you know, so we may be doing that. And think about this too. If you run into a particular issue, every one of you runs under a separate chapter, right? Every one of you operates under a separate chapter. So sit down and say, okay, so I want to, what's involved? I want to buy marijuana for my concentrate store, right? So sit down and just kind of reach back in the regulations and see which regulations allow you to do what and what you've got to do to get it from point A to point B. Then you want to sell the concentrates to a retailer, and what regulations you have to follow to get from point A to point B. But you do it in like a computer flow chart with the diamonds and the squares and the squiggly half ovals, okay? And I told the director, I says, maybe as you're doing this, you're going to find orphan regulations. You know, you might find orphan regulations, and maybe that means that we can tell them orphans they're 18 and get the hell out of the house. So there's an awful lot more work to do. Everybody who is up here, everybody who's ever been on this board, Pete Malarnick voted yes a heck of a lot more times than he voted no. Okay? Everybody votes the way they think they need to vote to do the job that we're here for as public servants. Okay? I mean, that's the bottom line. None of us are doing it because, yeah, you know, heck with that guy, or, you know, if I vote this way, something good's going to happen. That ain't the case. We make our votes, you know, on our consciences and on what we've heard and what we see, and we are able, on every vote we take, we're able to defend it. Now, in my case, I might have to go back and listen to the minutes because I can't remember that far back, but you know, that's why some of us talk a lot to build a record. You guys all know that. So I put my name in for another appointment, third and last term. See how that works out. If you know anybody else from rural Alaska that you think might be good, you know, encourage them to put their name in. Right? Give the governor a little pool there. Boy, we got the agenda done. Cool. With a little exclusion. So, yes.
Just a couple of last comments.
Yeah.
I would be cautious. I understand the business flow charting and stuff like that, but I'm always reminded of the flow chart that I oftentimes had in my office, and had a box over here and it said project starts. And then it had boxes over here and lines went every which way, and some boxes weren't connected at all. Then there was a box over here that says miracle happened. Box over here says project ends. So I'd be cautious. When I worked in Governor Cooper's office as an internal auditor, I also had a sign up on my desk It says for every complex problem, there's a simple answer, and it's always wrong.
Yeah, that's a good point, but I'm thinking we know that the governor's office has an interest in regulatory reform in general, and if we can, assist with that in some way, great. If there's much to reform, and, instead of coming up and saying, gee, this ain't working, explain why it ain't working, and explain what might be a good alternative, because we don't know everything, so help us out. And with that, unless there's business to come before this board, we are adjourned until January, either till the call of the chair to take care of a couple of things we missed, or till January 23rd in Juneau, where I hear it's always sunny.
Almost never.
Power off. Thank you. We'll see you.
The chairperson has disconnected. The conference will now end.